Mgcini will talk to us about that at about 6:45, so within this hour. Amid concern for the future of South Africa's HIV and AIDS, and this is a story we touched on, concerns about the future of South Africa's HIV and AIDS programs that are funded in part by aid money from the United States' PEPFAR policy. Well, there seems to be some reprieve that is coming our way, coming from Washington. The country's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, extending a lifeline, basically issuing a waiver for life-saving humanitarian assistance to save it from the executive order, at least for now, executive order that was issued by President Donald Trump that had the effect of freezing all international aid, including aid related to PEPFAR. But does that waiver go far enough? That conversation we were meant to have yesterday with Dr. Linda Gale Becker, that is coming up at about 6:50 in this hour. And have you tried DeepSeek? It's all the buzz at the moment in AI technology. I'd love to hear from you if you've tried it, with many raving about how impressive it is, and in comparison with the likes of your ChatGPT. Apparently, it is on point, even on some South Africanisms, and knows about Mama Joy, December, and it believes that Oscar Pistorius is the second best South African athlete of all time. But there are also certain concerns about accuracy and the likes. We'll have a conversation about DeepSeek AI technology at about 8:20. But what do I want? What do I have on my mind this morning? Well, this morning that letter, that extraordinary exchange between the president of South Africa and the president of Rwanda, really weighing on my mind this morning. So let's talk about President Ramaphosa. First issued a statement yesterday, giving account of conversations he has had with President Paul Kagame and others, and what the situation is in relation to the troops, the South African National Defence Force troops that are serving in the Eastern DRC. And there was a briefing later on by the Minister of Defence, Angie Motshekga, and the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, about the various aspects with which they are involved around that situation. Then later on, Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, taking to his social media platforms to basically, I don't know how to describe it, basically push back about what has been said by, among others, President Ramaphosa. Let me just quote, portions, because it's quite a lot that he said, President Kagame of Rwanda. He says, in part, what has been said about these conversations in the media by South African officials and President Ramaphosa himself contains a lot of distortion, deliberate attacks, and even lies. If words can change so much from a conversation to a public statement, it says a lot about how these very important issues are being managed. And then he goes on to give what he says are a few important clarifications. There was reference in some of the statements to, the M23 being assisted by Rwandan Defense Force militia. He says the Rwanda Defense Force is an army, not a militia. He goes on to then talk about the SAMI DRC, the forces within which South Africa serves in the DRC. He says that is not a peacekeeping force, and it has no place in this situation. Basically, it's a belligerent force that has been authorized by SADC. So basically, a fair target, a belligerent force in international law is a fair target that you can target in the theater of war. And he talks about the last part. This is where it gets really interesting. He says, President Ramaphosa confirmed to me that M23 did not kill the soldiers from South Africa, but the FAR RDC did. So basically, he's disputing the version that we've been given, that the South African soldiers died in confrontation with the M23. But importantly, he says, if South Africa wants to contribute to peaceful solutions, that is well and good. But South Africa is in no position to take on the role of a peacemaker or mediator. And if South Africa prefers confrontation, Rwanda will deal with the matter in that context any day. drops mic. That's President of Rwanda there, Paul Kagame. So I want to know from you, weigh in on this. What do you make of this escalation, at least in the war of words, over the last 24 hours? Your calls, I'll take those on 086 000 2032, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Of course, we also have all of your regulars locked and loaded for you, and Musa with your news updates every half hour, Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so, Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning, Ndauleng Lechela back with your economics, business and market news, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to N. Musa. N, good morning.
Good morning, Thulas.
I was fretting, I was worried, I couldn't sleep. All this talk about confrontation and Rwanda will deal with that matter any day. That's the big story, is it not?
It is, harsh, stern, direct message from the Rwandan president.
Yeah.
So we are looking at the situation and developments in Eastern DRC. Reports indicating it's still volatile and fluid. SADC today convenes an extraordinary summit in Harare to discuss the crisis. And the East African community leaders have called on all parties involved in the conflict in the Eastern DRC to cease hostilities and facilitate humanitarian access to the affected population. In court, what we're looking at, the former President Jacob Zuma's daughter, Duduzile Sambutla Zuma, is set to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court, and that's in connection with the July 2021 unrest, which saw more than 300 people killed. And a 27-year-old man arrested in connection with the rape of nurses at Khatshwene Clinic is appearing at the Polokwane Magistrates Court, and the accused was previously charged with alleged possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition. It is also the continuation of the bail application in the case of 12 suspects who are accused of hacking 5 people to death earlier this month in Inanda. They are facing charges of murder, kidnapping and attempted murder. And just lastly, the Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, saying that the U.S. move to temporarily cease its funding of HIV and AIDS programs around the world under the new Trump administration will have a limited impact on South Africa's fight against the disease. So some of the stories that we're focusing on this morning.
All right, and thank you for that. That's Ann Musa. She'll keep you updated with the news every half hour here on the Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So let's quickly give you a sense of what the weather is looking like on this Thursday. Just one impact-based warning coming through from the South African Weather Service. It says it's a yellow level 2 warning, and it says severe thunderstorms with damaging winds, hail, severe lightning and heavy downpours leading to localized flooding and damage to infrastructure are expected over the western parts of KwaZulu-Natal and southeastern parts of Mpumalanga. The rest of your weather looks like this. Let's start in Gauteng. All right, it's presented a bit differently. Okay, it's the regional weather. So in Gauteng, then the weather will be partly cloudy mostly and warm to hot with isolated showers and thunder showers, except in the southwest. In Mpumalanga, partly cloudy and warm with isolated to scattered showers and thunder showers, except in the Lowveld where it will be hot. Limpopo, fine in the west in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy and warm to hot with isolated showers and thunder showers in the south central parts. The northwest will be partly cloudy and hot to very hot with isolated showers and thunder showers in the extreme west. The Free State will be partly cloudy and warm to hot with isolated showers and thunder showers, except in the northeast. It will be scattered in the south. In the Northern Cape, it will be fine over the central parts, otherwise partly cloudy and warm to hot, but very hot in the east, where isolated to scattered showers and thunder showers can be expected. The wind along the coast will be moderate to fresh southwesterly. In the Western Cape, you can expect cloudy and cool conditions in the southwest with isolated showers and rain. Otherwise, fine, warm to hot, but very hot in the extreme northeastern parts. It will become partly cloudy in the east, in the extreme east, with isolated showers and thunder showers. The western half of the Eastern Cape will be partly cloudy and hot, with scattered showers and thunder showers, but isolated in the south, where it will be warm. In the eastern half of the Eastern Cape, it will be partly cloudy and warm, with scattered showers and thunder showers, but isolated in the southwest. And finally, in KwaZulu-Natal, you can expect morning fog patches over the interior, otherwise partly cloudy and warm to hot, with scattered showers and thunder showers in the west, otherwise isolated, except along the coast and adjacent interior. So we've been having a bit of a struggle with the weather, given the cyber attack that the South African Weather Service has been dealing with, which has sort of affected the usual platforms through which we get your weather. And we do hope that you bear with us from time to time when we do experience such irregular, the way presentations, when we present it rather differently.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan. 10% deposit, prime is 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford family guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. T&Cs apply.
The Toffees are well aware that only maximum points will help them out of the bottom half.
Lewin, great feat, brilliance, absolutely superbly done. Calvert-Lewin for Everton.
Meanwhile, the Foxes believe they are in dire need of victory to run away from trouble.
He's Jordan Ayew, back to goal. Jordan Ayew has scored for Leicester City, and those Leicester fans are celebrating wildly.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb contest, Everton FC versus Leicester City FC, on Saturday 1 February at 4:30 p.m, live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 minutes after 6. So we've not given you an update on the war in Ukraine in a while. So let's turn to it now. Ukraine has carried out a significant drone attack on a Russian oil refinery in Kstovo, around 800 kilometers from the front lines in eastern Ukraine. This marks one of the largest and most impactful Ukrainian operations in recent weeks. According to officials, the attack killed a mother and a toddler. For more on this, I'm joined on the line by Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Good morning to you, Roland, and thank you for your time. What do we read into Ukraine launching these drone attacks? I mean, I remember a few weeks ago, we were talking about Russia launching drone attacks, but it seems now Ukraine is flipping that script. What has emboldened them to strike deep into Russia?
Good morning, thank you. I think this is an ongoing part of the conflict and where the conflict is at this stage playing out. It's not the first, but it's one of the biggest drone attacks that Ukraine has launched. And with that also the use of missiles that they have been provided with. Although it seems that Ukraine is very careful in how they use especially some of the missiles due to limited stocks and probably at this stage a fear of not being replenished at the same rate that they have been in the past. So in one way, the war is continuing and there's heavy fighting and some progress from Russia within Ukraine. They're definitely making progress on the ground, not massively, but definitely making progress. And then Ukraine is defending and then attacking, especially using drones into Russia. The interesting part is that they seem to be attacking deeper and deeper into Russia. And there are different tactical reasons for that also. The targeting from Ukraine is oil facilities, mostly it seems that's where they've had most successes. Some attacks against military bases, especially those used in the war with for bombers, but especially where missiles are being launched from. The Russian attacks seem to be very much aimed at civilian infrastructure. Now, we haven't seen Ukraine really attacking civilian infrastructure, although there's been accusations of that from Russia. And there has been some civilian casualties in Russia, but very limited, especially if compared to what's happening in Ukraine. So it's not a tit for tat. That's not possible. But there's definitely not. The fighting hasn't stopped. It's continuing. It's heavy going for the Ukrainians. They're under severe pressure, but they're continuing with the war, and the war effort has not come to an end.
And from what Russia is saying, they've been able to down quite a number of these Ukrainian-launched drones.
Yes, on both sides. You can't stop all of it, but on both sides they've been quite successful in preventing these massive waves of attacks by downing many of the drones. But you're not going to do that. All of the drones are not going to always be stopped. So you will have some of these drones getting through. The interesting part is that if one looks at the latest attack from the Ukrainian perspective, they managed to have success. They've successfully detonated 2 big fuel supply oil refineries for oil supply or fuel supply storage areas, but they've also managed to disrupt again the operation of airports, even in the Moscow area again. So they seem to be acting in quite a wide area, the impact they have. But it's not the same impact as one would see in Ukraine itself, which is completely engulfed in terms of its eastern parts and areas around Kiev in terms of the operations from the Russian side.
You mentioned the advances that Russia is making on the ground. It seems that the focus really is on gaining as much territory as possible. What do we know about the extent to which they are making progress with that objective, which perhaps might be strategic at a later point, at the point at which there's now proper and full-on negotiation for a truce?
Well, the progress is slow. It's in the eastern parts, the southeastern parts. If one looks at the geography, it seems the Russians are controlling about 20% of Ukrainian territory, and that is mostly the southeastern parts where Russia started its invasion and the area that Russia claims as Russian territory. And if one looks at what is happening, it seems that Russia is continuing, and the idea behind this is probably that if negotiations start, given what we know at this stage, it's likely that Russia will maintain control of those areas. So it's not just continuing for the sake of continuing, it's getting as much as possible. And of course, it's putting huge pressure on Ukraine, which do not have the manpower and the same depth in terms of their defenses or the defense forces as the Russians have. So it's putting huge pressure on them. Interesting, if one looks at comments from Russia, suddenly it seems that there's in some way a hardened attitude. Mr. Putin in the last days said he will not negotiate with Zelensky because he's not a legitimate leader. So Putin is saying he said some days back he will negotiate. He's listening to what Mr. Trump is saying, and he's willing to negotiate. Suddenly now he's saying, I will not negotiate with Zelensky. Now that may be part of a strategy to say, I will negotiate with the US, I will not negotiate with the Ukrainians. And from Europe, and important here that especially the Polish president in the last 2 days said, there will not be negotiations that will be supported by Europe if Ukraine is not party to it, because this is about Ukraine. So it seems to be a lot of maneuvering happening not only military-wise, but also politically, to try and influence and inform a process that people are expecting to take shape.
Yeah, and I suppose then a lot will hinge on the first steps, the first forays that Donald Trump makes into a situation that he said he can resolve within a day or two as soon as he takes office.
Which is already been indicated that not only is that unrealistic, it's not going to happen, it's going to take a bit longer, and Mr. Trump has alluded to that. This will take a bit longer.
Reality was always going to hit. Thank you for that. That's Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. At 6:30, let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the Rwandan President Paul Kagame says Rwanda is ready for a confrontation with South Africa if necessary. His comments follow a claim by the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa that M23 rebels and Rwanda's Defence Force were responsible for the deaths of 13 South African soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Former President Jacob Zuma's daughter Duduzile Zuma Sambudla is expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Her court appearance is believed to be connected to the 2021 July unrest. And the DA, which is part of the Government of National Unity, is calling on the US government to urgently restore PEPFAR funding for the treatment of HIV/AIDS. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning. Zai, can you hear me? All right. All right, we'll come back to Zai in a moment. I think let's take the traffic with Rob. All right, Zai is there. Zai, can you hear me now?
Yeah, obviously. How are you doing?
Yeah,
We've managed to get it right.
You see what happens when you try and evade me. I want you here, in person. This thing of virtual, like it's those days of the lockdown. No, you must come to studio with me. This
I
side.
am in studio, just
this
next
studio.
door to you.
Tell me about Nedbank Cup action. Keegan Dolly is back with a bang.
Oh my God, he traded gold and black for red and black, and clearly thriving, Thulas. His team, 7 goals to 0. I don't know if that's a football score or is that a boxing knockout? Because I think Vasco da Gama, they just didn't lose. They got a hiding. TS Galaxy running riot in the Nedbank Cup. A lightning fast brace, and that was from Zinan Zaimovic setting the tone. Former Kaizer Chiefs star Keegan Dolly joining the party, as well as Marks Munyai, Tokozani Sibanyoni and Damir Sovcic all got onto the score sheet, making it a night to forget for Vasco da Gama. Now, with that dominant performance, Galaxy march into the round of 16, where they'll face Durban City. And there was another draw of the heavyweights avoiding each other. Mamelodi Sundowns, they'll now battle with impending home defenders. Kaizer Chiefs face fellow Premiership side Chippa United, and Orlando Pirates will battle Baroka FC, a club which made its name in the Nedbank Cup with a run to the semi-finals in 2011. Maruma Gallants will take on Amazulu, and Stellenbosch FC will take on Polokwane City, all Premiership ties. Supersport United will host Cape Town Spurs, and Sekekuna United away to either Royal AM or Milford FC. Now, Royal status remains unclear. Their matches suspended due to ongoing financial concerns, and whether their outstanding last 32 tie is played at all remains to be seen. The last 16 is scheduled to be played on the weekend of the 14th to the 16th of February. Elsewhere, Manchester City snuck into the playoff phase of the Champions League, coming from behind to meet Club Brugge 3-1 and finish 22nd of the 24 teams to secure qualification. A much changed Liverpool lost their 100% winning record in this season's Champions League after a 3-2 defeat to PSV Eindhoven in a 5-goal thriller. Ollie Watkins helping Aston Villa reach the last 16 as well of the Champions League, just hours after Arsenal's approach for the England striker was made public. The forward struck after Villa had blown away a 2-0 lead against Celtic, with teammate Morgan Rogers hitting a hat-trick in the 4-2 victory over the Scottish champions. Here's Villa boss Unai Emery.
Our way here is being very consistent. And of course in Champions League, we enjoy it here. We won matches and we are feeling strong here. through our supporters how they are helping us. And this is to be happy with them, to share it with them. All Villa fans try to be proud of everything we're doing, but keep going and keep going.
On to cricket, and a brilliant bowling and fielding effort along with an unbroken century aided MI Cape Town into a bonus point 10-wicket victory over the Sunrisers Eastern Cape in the SA encounter at Newlands in Cape Town last night. Corbin Bosch claimed his SA20 best figures of 4 for 19 to help bowl out the visitors for just 107 before Ryan Rickleton and Rassie van der Dissen put on 110 for the opening stand in just 11 overs to give MI Cape Town victory after winning the toss and electing to bowl first. And tennis action, the newly crowned Australian Open champion Madison Keys would have expected to receive invitations to more tournaments in the coming months, but the ATX Open in Austin, Texas was forced to drop the American after she climbed into the top 10 in the rankings. Now, Keys beat the top two seeds, Iga Swiatek, and the defending champions, Aryna Sabalenka, in Melbourne to win her first Grand Slam title, capitulating the 29-year-old into the top 10 and a career 7th in the ranking. But since February and March at a WTA 250 event, only one top 10 player is allowed in the draw. Keys had to agree, but unfortunately this will go now to Jessica Pegula, who will be participating in the tournament, and that's for the first time. And finally, golf news. Bobby Brown converted a love for the Royal Johannesburg East course into a fine 6 under par 66 in the second round of the Golf RSA International Amateur Championship to take a 2-stroke lead after 36 holes. And finally, Lewis Hamilton has crashed his Ferrari during the team's pre-season testing program in Spain. The 7-time champion was unhurt after losing control of the team's 2023 car at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Ferrari declined to comment on the incident, which happened on Hamilton's second day of running at the Spanish track, where he's sharing the car with teammate Charles Leclerc. The incident happened as Ferrari was seeking to embed Hamilton into the team as effectively as possible before the start of the season at the Australian Open, which is on the 14th to the 16th of March. We'll leave it there in the fast lane. There'll be more sport on the morning brief, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Heads up, if you're driving to Germiston every morning, you might want to just reroute off the M2. The M2 is absolutely solidly queuing down to Refinery Road and pushing a traffic queue back past Albany Bakery and back towards the N3 Hilton. They so look at some alternative options to avoid that. Major delays coming out of Pietermaritzburg on your way to Durban. There's a stationary truck between New England Road and Market Road, and that traffic working a heavy queue. Loads of trucks there. It is a Thursday. It's a high truck day as well. Loads of congestion back past New England, back towards Ortman Road. If you want to off-ramp at Church Street and hit some alternative routes through Pietermaritzburg, pop out the other side. You could on-ramp at Market Road or just push through an on-ramp at Ashburn. Just keep yourself moving rather than be stuck in that big queue. There's also some delays coming out of Durban towards Pietermaritzburg. A bit of a bottleneck at Key Ridge, just after Shongwenia gets heavy, and then the M13 out from sort of Hillcrest as you come onto the N3. That's quite slow as well. Cape Town wet weather conditions, bit of rain across the city this morning and for pretty much most of the day today, and just enough rain to make conditions a bit wet and slippery, wash that grease and grime to the surface. We've already got a police vehicle that's been involved in a crash on the M3 South at Bishop's Court, and separately a crash coming up Wynberg Hill up towards Travato Link Road, in from Constantia. Also a crash delay there as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
All right, let's say good morning to Ndauling Lechela, who makes a return. It must be nice to take a break in January. I wish I had that life. Welcome back.
Thanks so much, Thulas. Yeah. It wasn't a break, it was actually work. But you know what?
Let's call it work. It's okay. So this was the first Fed meeting and announcement of the interest rate decision under the Trump administration, and much was expected from it. But they didn't give much away by way of what direction they're going to go, did they?
That's right, Thulas. And we're kicking off the year on a rather slow note, especially when it comes to monetary policies. No surprises here. Jerome Powell and his team leaving rates unchanged at the first meeting of the year. The decision followed 3 straight cuts since last year, September, with a full percentage point, and marked, of course, the first Fed meeting since Donald Trump assumed the presidency this month, and almost immediately made known his intentions that he wants the central bank to cut rates. Now, post-meeting statement provided some insight into the Fed's recent move, with policymakers more optimistic about the outlook of the labor market, but they omitted a crucial reference from the December statement, which mentioned that inflation had made progress toward the Fed's 2% target. Now, this suggests that the Fed may be taking a more cautious approach to inflation despite the labor market's resilience. The statement tone also implies that the Fed is prioritizing controlling inflation while acknowledging the economy's strength. It'll be interesting to see what the SARB does today, considering that global inflation risks are to the upside as central bankers await Trump's tariffs. Consensus for the SARB's meeting today is for a 25 basis point rate cut, but many will be eyeing Lesetja Kganyago's commentary on future policy moves.
Yeah. And closer to home, and Dowling, tell me about Botswana and the deal that the new diamond deal that they've finalized with De Beers.
So Botswana's President Duma Boko making sure diamonds remain a girl's best friend to us. That's as he announced a diamond extraction and sales agreement with De Beers, bringing much needed certainty to the country's gem-dependent economy. Now, the deal, finalized on the 24th of January, will be made public soon. President Boko confirmed this in a Bloomberg interview. Now, Botswana's economy heavily relies on the diamond industry. Botswana, a joint venture between De Beers and the government, mines most of the country's diamonds. President Boko emphasized that the agreement will restore economic stability and promote growth. Botswana will focus on marketing its natural diamonds, highlighting their provenance and the story behind each gem. This strategy, he says, aims to differentiate Botswana's diamonds from lab-grown alternatives, which have been challenging traditional diamond markets. Now, we must remember that Anglo-American is still selling De Beers. They just haven't found a buyer yet, so that's still a risk to Botswana as well.
All right, please give us our first roundup of the markets from here at home and elsewhere in the world for the morning.
Now, trade has been choppy this week as the tax sell-off spooked markets. That uncertainty filtering through to equities overnight, with U.S. markets closing in the red. The Nasdaq taking the biggest knock, down over 0.5% overnight. Local markets, in the meantime, backing the overall trend, ending yesterday's session in the green. The All Ship up over 1%, boosted by a 1.6% jump from the Resources 10 complex. The Rand, meanwhile, trading range-bound ahead of today's MPC meeting decision. This is the first one for the year, which will somewhat set the tone for policy moves moving forward. The Rand sitting at 18.53 to the dollar this morning. And then over in Asia, trade quite thin as Chinese markets remain closed on account of the Chinese New Year holidays.
All right, that's Ntauling Lechela. That's the first of her 3 reports for you on the economy, business and the markets. She'll be back just after 7:30 with another one here on The Morning Brief.
I feel great, I feel nice.
Osha, what's the goal? We're coiling on the highest, the summer level. What are we? Generations the legacy. Kabisi's call for Kumo's side eye. That quasher of the drama context. It's churchy Christmas vibes. It's the core on SABC Plus. Don't miss Generations the Legacy at 8 weekdays on SABC 1. Mzansi for sure.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
16 minutes to 7 on this Thursday. Let's turn to this story now. The Johannesburg MMC for Public Safety and who is also the acting MMC for Health and Social Development, Dr. Mgcini Jwaku, has launched the Mamas and Babies campaign in the city. The MMC says the initiative is dedicated to addressing the struggles of vulnerable women and children at city intersections. The campaign's focus will be to raise awareness of the risks women and children face on the streets, as well as connect them to support networks. The MMC joins us now. Good morning to you, MMC Jwaku, and thank you for your time. So, Mamas and Babies is a campaign that you are launching, presumably directed at a particular problem that you've identified that relates to the plight of women and children at the city's intersections. What is the issue you are trying to address?
No, good morning to yourself, Thulasizwe, and good morning to your listeners as well. No, there's MMC Umakofela actually had this idea that, look, they need to partner with the public safety, JMPD, to really address this issue, because remember, some of these mamas and babies in the intersection, they're not supposed to be there, actually, according to the National Traffic Act, those regulations, because it's actually quite dangerous. You've got traffic which is moving up and down, and all of that. And also, it actually leads to mugging, especially later at night. And then you've got kids which are, subjected to harsh, conditions, because they are using these kids, to really beg on those traffic circles. We just discovered that some of those kids, they actually hire them from people in the townships, like everywhere. So we are saying that, with the communities out there, with our motorists and everyone, please stop giving some donations to any individual, whether it be homeless people. There are centers where you can bring these donations so that we can encourage all these people, which are mamas and babies there. And also, with the homeless, because as I'm speaking to you right now, we are in Hillbrow right now. At walk, we are with the homeless people. We're taking them to the centers. So we were trying to really highlight that. Yeah.
So MMC, you allude in what you just said now. You allude to, part of the phenomenon being the possibility that some of these children are quote unquote hired from other people, then taken to these intersections for the purposes of begging. It leads me to ask you, to what extent are you investigating other players in the value chain, the possibility of exploitation that perhaps even these women that are sometimes seen standing with these children are themselves subject to further exploitation by people who perhaps drop them off? Is that something you are looking into?
Yes, it's something that we're actually looking into. One of the TRU guys, we've actually confiscated one of their phones, because what we've experienced is that there were close to 35 hotspots within the city, especially at region F1, which is your CBD area, Mayfair, Fortsburg, around this area. There are 35 hotspots. And then when we were about on the 10th one, we found that we didn't find anyone, because it looks as if they've got this WhatsApp group. When we're coming in, then they will start, to really run away. Same as with the spaza shops. When we did the spaza shops as well through the environmental health, you go to the first spaza shop, the third, the fourth spaza shops, they're all closed because they've got a WhatsApp group where this thing is actually it is coordinated. So we've confiscated one of the phones with the police, so we're going to check in terms of how do these people actually communicate.
Yeah.
This actually goes further when Atula says that they're not even using kids alone. You know, the people which are blind as well, they're actually getting hired from the families as well to come and, you know, and beg on those robots. So we are saying also, please, with our communities out there, if you want to donate, you know, even these guys, they're vagrants on the robots, on these traffic lights. It's us, the community, we are giving them money. Please, you want to donate, just contact social development in the state of Johannesburg and donate that money. They don't give them because you are creating a market for them to really damage the traffic lights.
Commendable, MMC. Commendable that you are focusing on the socio-economics of this phenomenon, but you will still face the question that says none of this would have been possible, all the exploitation you are describing, none of it would have been possible had there been consistent bylaw enforcement such that no person can even stand at the intersection for a day, let alone being a permanent fixture there.
No, I agree with you. Look, it has taken some time. I mean, when we came in, you remember I said that we had to, boost the morale of the JMPD. I had to get inside in terms of what has been happening within the JMP. Remember, they did not have a chief for the longest of time. Today, we're having a report going into council to recommend a chief of police of the JMPD. We are stabilizing that unit now. We finished with the interviews for the director for the bylaw unit. It didn't have one for the longest of time as well. So we are really coming in and zooming in and filling all these positions that were there. Remember, I'm a positioner corner. You'll have these dynamics within the police force, who becomes what, and then you find that at the service delivery, it actually suffers. I even went even further now to go into their business plan. Business plan has got KPIs.
Yeah.
You cannot say to me that at the end of the financial year, I'm 80% done with the bylaw. And I asked them question, what do you mean about that?
Yeah.
So we had to go deep in terms of the key performance indicators. You are dealing with mamas and babies how many have you removed? How many illegal traders which don't have a permit have you put them in the right place? How many buildings have you inspected? You must say, out of 1,000, I've done 800, and it must be visible. So we are fighting with that in terms of coordinating them. So I think that you're going to be seeing that we must be coordinated. We're opening what is called a fusion center. That is actually inspired by the city, by the mayor as well. A fusion center is when now all stakeholders, JMPD, remember JMPD, must be working with social development, must be working with
MMC?
the building control, everyone,
All right, thank you for that. Let's leave it there. Wish you all the best, and we will hold you to account for some of those undertakings. That is Dr. Mgcini Jwaku, who is the Johannesburg MMC for Public Safety, but also acting as MMC for Health and Social Development.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Here's a couple to avoid. Pretoria East this morning. There's some very heavy standstill traffic along Solomon Mashlangu between Linwood Road and Olympus Road. It's literally not moving. Everything being stopped up, and that's causing a big delay behind that on Linwood Road as well in both directions. So very heavy traffic through that part of Pretoria East. Also, same sort of deal if you're going into Germiston. Try and avoid the M2. Otherwise, you're going to sit in a long backlog of traffic from the N3 Heldenace right down to a stoppage down at Refinery Road. Crash on Joburg's M2 westbound going into Crown Interchange. That's heavy coming through from Joe Slovo Drive. Another heads up if you come in from Walkerville for running up the R82, expect some delays there in the Kibler Park area. There's also some really impressive traffic queues building up into that scene as well. Now, breaking down trucks on KZN's N3, a real scourge at the moment. We've got one stuck at Market Road, so there's a really heavy backlog towards Ortman Road. If you're coming down from Hilton Howick, off-ramp at Church Street, route through Pietermaritzburg, pop out the other side. You can on-ramp at Market or on-ramp at Ashburton, and you'll avoid a major backlog of traffic congestion along that bypass. There's also a stationary truck around Key Ridge, the N3 from Shongweni, M13 out of Hillcrest to join the N3 going to Pietermaritzburg. Both of those routes backlogging, and a collision on the N2 northbound at Umgeni Road. So very heavy traffic this morning up that N2 from the M7 through the roadworks at Westwood Mall and up towards that crashing. Cape Town, wet weather conditions, everything on a go slow. Give you an idea of how bad it is. The N1 into town already backing from Cryford Bloemfontein territory. That's where it starts all the way through to Coburg interchange. The M2's heavy from the airport inbound. There's a crash on the wet M3 this morning at top of Weinberg Hill, and that's causing a big delay with a pushback right back beyond the Constantia exit. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Compliments for 2025, Mangani. Call me Mabel Goals because I'm coming for it all this year. Body, relationship, and financial goals. With my Just Invest account, financially I'm cruising. 2 more to go. You know any available Prince Charming voice man?
I've got you, Mabel. Sorry. Mara, you can also be like Mabel and earn up to 8.25% in interest to start the year right. Open yours via the Money app today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply. Go to nedbank.co.za for more information.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's turn our attention to this now. The future of South Africa's HIV/AIDS programs is in jeopardy as funding from the U.S. government has been stopped for now. This follows a recent executive order from President Donald Trump of the United States to pause all foreign direct assistance. The affected programs include the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief and the National Institutes of Health, two major sources of funding for HIV/AIDS initiatives in South Africa. I've got to update that and say that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State in the United States, has now issued a waiver from that executive order for life-saving humanitarian assistance. But let's see if that goes far enough. Let's pose that question to Professor Linda Gale Becker, who is CEO of the Desmond Tutu HIV Foundation. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. So let's start right there. This reprieve that seems to have come through from Marco Rubio, this waiver for life-saving humanitarian assistance. As far as we understand it, will it assist in some way in terms of the impact of the executive order?
So I think there is still a little bit of confusion about that this morning. So we, I think it's the interpretation of life-saving therapy, and the word HIV does not actually occur within the memo that came from Mr. Rubio. But hopefully that is the case. We all received stop work orders between the dates 24th and 27th of January. And I guess one has to wait and see if those stop work orders are actually reversed to see and the extent. Is it only going to be purchasing antiretrovirals that will be allowed, or will we be able to do all the technical work that PEPFAR was doing, or that the PEPFAR dollars was allowing us to do in this country and in our region? And that's really, I think, still the question to be answered, hopefully in the next day or two. But it's been a very anxious time with a lot of confusion about all of these stop work orders.
Yeah, and in fact, anecdotal conversations that some of us have had indicate that the impact was felt almost immediately. Why is that? What makes PEPFAR so critical, such that as soon as these stop work orders were issued, there was not only that anxiety, but you started seeing the impact almost immediately?
It literally was, because the stop work order had the wording of cease immediately. So it wasn't, you might have imagined that if a huge program came to an end, there would be, this must stop in 1 month or in 3 months or in 6 months. But this was stop work immediately. So people were told not to come into work. And clinics had, mobile clinics that go out into the community to give out, for example, pre-exposure prophylaxis had to have a notice on the door saying, this clinic will be closed from now on. Please come and fetch any medication you need by 4 o'clock this evening. So, it really was an extraordinary situation of lights on one day and lights off the next day.
Sure. So for someone who doesn't understand, why does PEPFAR matter this much, such that any threat of its removal, temporary or long-term, evokes this kind of panic and anxiety? Please outline for us, why does this matter?
Well, one has to be a little bit historic in this case. So in 2003, when we were reeling because people were dying in large numbers due to inaccessibility to life-saving antiretroviral therapy, the then George Bush administration said, what can be done about this? And to his credit, he created the President's Emergency Fund for AIDS Relief. And this meant that for the first time, life-saving antiretroviral, anti-HIV treatment could be brought to the Southern Hemisphere, particularly to our region, where mortality due to AIDS was enormous, could really turn those rates around and change the face of HIV. Over time, PEPFAR has somewhat changed because, subsequently many, many millions of lives have been saved, but also the epidemic has matured, and it now, particularly in our country, has taken on more of a technical kind of face, in that it provides a lot of the money that allows us to, for example, hire community-based workers who go out into the community to find people who've stopped their antiretroviral therapy. It helps us to be able to provide prevention for HIV, to stop people getting infected and so on. In some countries in our region, however, it continues to actually buy the drugs. So because countries don't have, huge health budgets, they actually have been reliant still 100% on PEPFAR. So when you remove that, that's a huge component of the AIDS response, both for treatment, prevention and care. So it really matters.
Yeah, anxious times. All right, thank you for sharing those insights with us. That's Professor Linda Gale Becker, who is CEO of the Desmond Tutu HIV Foundation. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, a war of words between South Africa and Rwanda's presidents and Zuma Sambutla expected in court. Good morning. The Rwandan President Paul Kagame says Rwanda is ready for a confrontation with South Africa if necessary. His comments follow a claim by President Cyril Ramaphosa that the M23 rebels and Rwanda's Defence Force were responsible for the deaths of 13 South African soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Kagame has also said South Africa cannot be a peacemaker.
I spoke with the President of South Africa, who sought me out to speak with me on this matter because of their involvement in Eastern Congo. And he's also there pretending to be playing a peacemaker role, and he has a force that has been fighting alongside FDLR and has been fighting the M23 on the instructions of Tshisekedi, because these are people who are not supposed to be in Congo.
Meanwhile, Defence Minister Angie Motshekga has dismissed allegations that SANDF soldiers deployed to the DRC are poorly equipped. Motshekga says she met with generals in Goma and was not informed of any shortage of ammunition.
I personally went to Goma and I got briefing from all the generals. At no stage did they say they have no ammunition. We reinforce on the basis that because there's been this escalated hostilities, then we spoke back home with the meeting that General attended with the National Council of Arms to say it's going to be very important for us to reinforce to make sure that we don't reach a stage where we don't have. But at no stage did any of the generals that I spoke, even the force leader, said to me we've run out of ammunition. No, even Tanzania was reinforcing, and even itself DRC was reinforcing.
Former President Jacob Zuma's daughter Duduzile Zuma Sambudla is expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Her court appearance is believed to be connected to the 2021 July unrest. Nonjabula Mtungwa Makamu reports.
It's not clear whether Duduzile Zuma Sambudla will be facing similar charges to those of the 65 alleged instigators. Zuma Sambudla, who is also the MK Party's Member of Parliament, is the latest to be charged in connection with the 2021 civil unrest. The riots affected KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng and claimed the lives of 354 people. Businesses and critical infrastructure were also affected. The violence broke out following the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma for violating a constitutional court order after failing to appear before the Zondo State Capture Commission of Inquiry.
Residents of White River in Mpumalanga are claiming the water supplied by the embattled city of Mbombela is dirty and smelly. The residents accuses the municipality of failing to replace the deteriorated asbestos water pipes, among others. White River Ratepayers Association's chairperson Johan Heymans.
Our people can't wash their clothes. Our people can't bath. School clothes, people have to replace their school clothes continuously because once it's stained, it doesn't get out. We've taken 5 samples in White River and we are going to make that results public. We want council to be accountable. We pay for rates and taxes very highly. Imagine you paying 400 litres of diesel in your car and the guy at the pump only fills up 5 litres. We are unhappy. We pay good money. People are very unhappy. Everybody don't have water filtering systems at their houses. We have to buy water.
And finally, the DA, which is part of the Government of National Unity, is calling on the US government to urgently restore PEPFAR funding for the treatment of HIV/AIDS. The immediate halting of PEPFAR funding has resulted in the sudden suspension of critical health support services at NGOs across the country. On the 20th of this month, the Trump administration, through the US Department of State, ordered the immediate suspension of all foreign assistance. The DA's Emma Powell elaborates.
NGOs across South Africa that receive US government funds were issued with stop work orders and had to close their doors. Many of these NGOs provide critical, life-saving HIV/AIDS medicine and treatment to vulnerable South Africans. Via the PEPFAR program, the United States funds almost 20% of all HIV care funding in South Africa.
Recapping the top story, the Rwandan President Paul Kagame says Rwanda is ready for a confrontation with South Africa if necessary. His comments follow a claim by President Cyril Ramaphosa that the M23 rebels and Rwanda's Defence Force were responsible for the deaths of 13 South African soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
This January, to save money, you could cut back on the milk in your cereal, or you could switch to Outsurance and save on your car insurance premium. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're just joining us, very heavy delays across Pretoria, East Solomon Mshlangu. That section between Linwood Road and Olympus Drive should be aiming to avoid that. Traffic is standing both directions. Traffic lights out coming out of Midrand's Blue Hills, Olifants at Lever, and at the N1 that's heavy. And then from Blue Hills the R55, a couple of lights down through the Crowthorne and Kyalami area causing delays. William Mandela out of Four Ways, a mess again today. The lights down all the way from sort of Danefern right through to Bryanston territory. And big queues on the M2 into Germiston. and that's another one to avoid. You're going to sit heavily from the N3 highway at Heldnace right down to Refinery Road. Stationary truck around Peacevale this morning, so it's stuck before Cliffdale, but it's a very heavy backlog. I've just put a video up on Twitter at Traffic SA. You can just see how extreme the delays are and how quickly it builds up once you get a stationary truck between sort of Key Ridge and Cliffdale in the roadwork zone. Also in Durban, a crash on the N2 going north at Umgeni Road. That's extra heavy this morning on the run-up from the M7. And Cape Town, a collision at the top of Wynberg Hill, causing a big backlog almost to Takai on the M3 inbound. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer. The Soweto Giants are bracing themselves for Nedbank Cup battles. That's in the round of 16. And in cricket, South Africa's under-19 men, they draw against England in their first youth test at the Kutsenberg Oval in Stellenbosch. All these stories and more at around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 7:10 on this Thursday. Good morning and welcome to it. This is the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's good to be in your company this morning. What's coming up over the next hour or so? Let's start here. We'll talk about, you hear it all the time. All the time we talk about budget cuts. One or other unfortunate and even tragic situation always attributed to budget cuts. What exactly do we mean when we say budget cuts? And importantly, what is the impact of those budget cuts as far as the safety and security of our country is concerned? You will have heard about budget cuts from anywhere, from the Border Management Authority, and right now more, relevantly at the moment, the SANDF also suffering budget cuts over a long period of time. I'll be in conversation with Professor Bonke Dumisa, the economist, who will help us make sense of those budget cuts and how they impact aspects of our life, such as the safety and security of our country, and how it all relates to the levels of debt that we have as a country. Then I'll tell you a bit about the contradictions, right? If you saw the briefing that happened yesterday on the sidelines of the Cabinet Lekgotla, you will clearly have picked up contradictions within the Government of National Unity as far as the levels of equipment of the troops serving in the DRC, the question of whether or not at any point they ran out of ammunition. All of this, of course, playing itself out against the backdrop of the war of words that is now fully on between President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Paul Kagame of Rwanda. We'll speak to the senior journalist Lenin Ndebele, who's been tracking that story quite closely, and that's coming up within the next 10 minutes or so. All of your regulars, again, we have them locked and loaded, but you are a critical part of this conversation. Give me a call on 086 000 2032, as well as send WhatsApp voice notes to the number 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
This summer, we celebrate 30 years of democracy with 30 Winds of Change on Sundays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC2, a tribute to the heroes who shaped our nation. Join us as we reflect on our country's journey with the likes of Advocate Thuli Madonsela, Mfundi Vundla, Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng, Helen Ziller, and many more. 30 Winds of Change, 30 years of progress, one powerful story. Download SABC Plus and stream your favorite shows anytime from anywhere. Ritsweri Vibe, only on SABC2.
V up your 2025 with Vodacom Business and Galaxy AI. Save up to 20,000 Rand with trade-in when you pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra 256 gig on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for just 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal with the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM for 69 Rand extra per month. Available in-store and online. Further together. Vodacom Business.
This January, to save money, you could carpool with your not-so-friendly neighbor, or you could switch to Outsurance and save on your car insurance premium. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash and make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Without insurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Right, so let's start here. Economists say the South African government's underfunding of important projects and areas of policy is proving to be a threat to the country's safety and security. For example, the Border Management Authority, responsible for managing the country's ports of entry, is grappling with a 4.5 billion Rand budget shortfall that threatens its operations over the next 3 years. In 2024, the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans said the underfunding of the South African National Defence Force limited logistical support and continued to put the lives of SANDF members and the country's security at risk. So let's take that conversation forward now. I'm joined by Professor Bonke Dumisa, who is an economist. Good morning to you, Prof, and it's great to have you on this morning. So it's all right. I'm told we will come back to Professor Bonke Dumisa in just a moment. I want to turn to the story now about what's playing out in the DRC. Before we talk to the journalist Lenin Ndebele, I want you to listen to, we've been asking the question of whether or not South African National Defence Force members at any point ran out of ammunition during their confrontations in the east of the DRC. Listen to two different versions of what happened. The first one from General Bantu Holomisa, the Deputy Minister. Then you'll hear from the Minister of Defence, Angie Motshekga. Take a listen.
Around Thursday, Friday morning, they said they are running out of ammunition and they wanted a reinforcement. The ammunition was sent by Saturday evening. It was in Congo. I mean, in eastern in Goma and so on. So in terms of the issues related to us coming back and bringing those troops back now, the situation currently is as follows. Our government is in contact with the United Nations so that they can facilitate the transportation of those people out of Goma.
So there you have it. That's General Bantu Holomisa, the Deputy Minister of Defence. The upshot from what he is saying, by Thursday, Friday, the SANDF were saying we've run out of ammunition and the ammunition had to be shipped up and it arrived by Saturday. But listen to the version coming from the Minister of Defence, Angie Motshekga.
I personally went to Goma and I got briefing from all the generals. At no stage did they say they have no ammunition. We reinforce on the basis that because there's been this escalated hostilities, then we spoke back home with the meeting that General attended with the National Council of Arms to say it's going to be very important because the situation is very fluid and very problematic. It's going to be important for us to reinforce to make sure that we don't reach a stage where we don't have. But at no stage did any of the generals that I spoke, even the force leader said to me, we've run out of ammunition. No.
Yeah. So make of that what you will. It's either the minister was not, it's either the version given by General Holomisa happened, the deputy minister happened, and the minister wasn't told, or actually, I don't know, the two versions can't coexist. Let's speak to Lenin Ndebele, who is an international news reporter with News 24. Good morning to you, Lenin, and thank you for your time. Perhaps you can make heads or tails of what we are hearing about the true state of play as far as it relates to the SANDF. What do you know to be their status at the moment?
Well, I can tell you right now, those that are at the airport, they are encircled by the M23 rebels. And last night, the rebels gave them food. They were given food, and as far as I can tell you, President Ramaphosa and Kagame had a telephone conversation about the situation there. And on that call, the president asked for food, electricity, and water for for the incentive. You know, they can't get in anything into North Kivu right now because everything goes through the airport, the Goma airport. The last time they tried to have supplies shipped into DRC, they failed to land in Goma. It ended up going to Bujumbura, that is in Burundi. So can you imagine how you can move supplies from Bujumbura into North Kivu? It's obviously by road if anything happens. And on that road, you have the Red Tabara rebels on standby, maybe helping the South Africa, the Congolese forces. Yeah.
So those are extraordinary words that you use there, Lenin. Encircled is what you are saying. And you allude to the South African National Defence Force members being given food by the rebels. It makes the whole conversation with Paul Kagame critical, doesn't it? Because in his response, the president of Rwanda says, quote, in relation to President Ramaphosa, quote, he did ask for support to ensure the South African force has adequate electricity, food and water, which we shall help communicate. And when he says help communicate, he's talking about the direct line that they have with the M23.
Yes, Kagame is accused of supporting the M23, but obviously he has a communication with them. But on that same front, South African forces have been trying to talk to MONUSCO. That's the blue helmets, the standby force, the UN guys, to at least get South African forces transported from Sake to Goma, a safe passage to Goma.
So when we hear the other area of contradiction that I picked up, Lenin, has to do with whether or not South African forces will continue to stay in the DRC as part of the MONUSCO forces as well as the Summit DRC, the SADC mission in the DRC. When you hear the deputy minister actually says they are liaising with the United Nations to help get those people out of there. We just played the audio at the moment. Which version should we believe? Is it about continuing to be present and playing a role in peacekeeping, or are we really looking at a complete pullout of South African forces?
Well, it's a catch-22 because those in Goma are totally incapacitated. Unless those that are in Sake manage to make their way into Goma, which is nearly impossible because the rebels are encircling Sake. Sake is like in a valley. It's a town which is in a valley, and there are mountains around it. You know, in that terrain, it's very controversial for anyone to try anything. Like, you can't be a Rambo in this war, you know. So it's really, really a tight situation for South Africans. I don't know what's going to be agreed on at the SADC summit in Harare tomorrow, but as it stands, South Africa stands tight.
Sure. All right. Thank you for that. That's Lenin Ndebele there. You should follow his coverage of the situation in the Eastern DRC. He's been working his networks and his sources quite hard and just really at the forefront of some of the coverage that we have seen. So let's link it back to the situation around the budget cuts that we've been talking about and their impact on safety and security. As I said earlier on, I'm now joined by Professor Bonke Dumisa, an economist. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time this morning. So there's been a lot of focus on the levels of budget that is allocated to areas of safety and security, but also national security in the sense of the SANDF. Yesterday, the Deputy Minister, Bantu Holomisa, talking about a commitment to raising the a percentage of spending on defense to above 1%. Is this a case of the chickens coming home to roost in as far as the underfunding of some of these key safety and security elements?
Yes, I hear you, Babu Thulasizwe Simelane, and you've cornered me because the Len was the appropriate person to talk on those
yes.
military issues, etc. That's political talk. Political analysts deal with that, and what you expect me to do is to deal with the economic aspects
Absolutely.
of all these things.
Do exactly
yes,
that,
I want people to keep that one in mind. So. Yes, I heard that what the Deputy Minister of Defense was saying was somehow different to what the Minister of Defense was saying. But it's all in the same context. The Minister of Defense was looking at what has transpired and dealing with the facts there. And the Deputy Minister was talking about the financial aspects of it. Let me move to the financial aspect of everything. Yes,
that's I really would like to get the benefit of your expertise. Don't worry about the contradictions. Don't concern yourself with that at all. But talking about budget cuts, we use the word loosely, budget cuts. So we allude to it in education, Border Management Authority, and as I said, SANDF and other areas as well. What do we mean when we say budget cuts, and to what extent is that beginning to impact areas of, daily life in South Africa?
The issue of, let's call them budget shortfalls, is affecting all the aspects of life in South Africa. And the reason why we have this particular problem, I don't think it has anything to do with political parties. It has to do with what happened in South Africa after 1994. We had the slogan "A Better Life for All," which was an innocent slogan, and based on that, we expected then that the government in South Africa will just keep on giving everything. But we did not take into consideration that, like when you run your own household, you have to have a budget. The budget of South Africa has got to be based within the means of what South Africa gets in terms of revenue. We cannot have your expenditures far outstripping your revenues. In South Africa, we've had this situation where we've had our expenditures far outstripping our revenues for a long time. And it is because of that South Africa has got over 6 trillion rands in terms of government debt. Then that's why we are spending over 1 billion rands a day servicing the debt costs, not dealing with the actual principal. It is against that background then that government is forced, it's not just a question of being prudent, is forced to make sure then that they operate within constraints, because the government does not have money. Our debt to GDP ratio is over 70%. And that is what South Africans must accept. And it is against that background then that the government cannot necessarily be able, no matter how noble it is, to spend far more money on the SANDF in Congo than spending more money on SANDF in protecting and making sure that it protects all the borders of South Africa.
Gotcha.
So those are the issues. In the same way as we have with doctors, South Africa spends a lot of money training them. I think I was told it spends over 500,000 rands per medical student in total to train them to become medical doctors. But once they've qualified, they are not able to give them the post, not because they intended to have that wasteful expenditure and fruitless expenditure, but because they do not have the money to pay them once they are working there.
Right.
So let us look at ways that South Africans, all of them, you don't need to know about economics or accounting, etc., must look at how we can spend more time to address this thing and have trade-offs between what we spend and what we get.
Prof,
we cannot pretend we are driving a Rolls Royce when we are actually driving a car which people call a suitcase.
Prof,
called suitcases.
Yes. Prof, thank you for that. Let's leave it there for this morning. Because of time, I do need to move on. That's Professor Bonke Dumisa, an economist. Let's take in the perspectives then of Faith Mapera, who is a senior researcher at the Institute for Global Dialogue, just on the DRC-South Africa relationship, as well as what has been happening in as far as diplomacy is concerned to try and resolve the situation in the Eastern DRC. Good morning to you, Faith, and thank you for your time. I'm sure you will have seen the the exchanges between President Ramaphosa and the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. What do you make of it all? How does it bode for efforts to find a peaceful solution to the situation in the DRC?
Good morning to Thulasizwe. Just a quick correction. I'm no longer with the Institute for Global Dialogue. I'm at Wits University. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow.
Sure. Thank you for that.
At Wits University. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
Yes, I've seen that indeed the situation is evolving rapidly. In fact, on the back of what was envisaged to be an extraordinary meeting of the EAC convened by EAC Chairperson Kenyan President William Ruto, that in all likelihood looks like it's not going to proceed as planned, especially given the reluctance by both President Kagame and President Tshisekedi to attend that meeting. So we've seen the exchanges between that. It's clearly one born out of vastly different narratives being put forward as to the result of what has resulted in what has been aptly labeled as the fall of Goma. So this divergence in both political and military readings of the situation, particularly because both South Africa and Rwanda have such high stakes with regard to the evolving situation on the ground. So on one hand, you have President Kagame, who has been rather strident. He's not one to mince words regarding the messaging on the ground and from his quarters. And then you have President Ramaphosa, who in a way lost a bit of ground because it took a while before we heard from the presidency, especially considering that the events that we've been speaking about have been unfolding as far as at the weekend, as early as the weekend.
All right, thank you for that. That is Dr. Faith Mapera, who is an international relations and security analyst, a postdoctoral fellow at Wits University. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the Rwandan President Paul Kagame says Rwanda is ready for a confrontation with South Africa if necessary. His comments follow a claim by President Cyril Ramaphosa that the M23 rebels and Rwanda's Defence Force were responsible for the deaths of 13 South African soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the U.S. move to temporarily cease its funding of HIV and AIDS programs around the world under the new Trump administration will have a limited impact on South Africa's fight against the disease. And former President Jacob Zuma's daughter, Duduzile Zuma Sambodla, is expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Her court appearance is believed to be connected to the 2021 July unrest. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
All SASA Gold cards will stop working on the 28th of February 2025. Replace yours today with the new Postbank Black Card at no cost. Join hundreds of thousands of grant beneficiaries already receiving their grants on their new Postbank Black Cards. For your convenience, you can collect your card at multiple locations nationwide. Card replacement points are at selected ShopRite Checkers, Pick n Pay and Boxer stores. To find a location near you, dial *120 *218 *3#. Don't wait. Upgrade your card today for free. Trusted by millions for 150 years. Postbank, your bank. Welcome to the SABC TV License Loyalty Program, where your payment isn't just about paying fees. It's about joining a vibrant community of connected viewers. Ready for the journey? Here's your roadmap. Sign up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and unlock an instant reward. You'll get an SMS to confirm your registration. Make a 50% or 100% payment to your account for a payment confirmation SMS and a promotional code. Explore our partners' product catalogs for an array of offerings. Receive an SMS voucher for your favorite outlet as the icing on the cake. Don't wait. Dive into a world of benefits. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Try and stay off the M2, going into Germiston, maybe your workbound. There's some really big hold-ups there from the N3 Heldenace. It's just going to sit all the way down past Albany Bakery and on towards Refinery Road. Be worth rerouting on some local routes to get in without that sort of hassle. Blue Hills, whether you're out towards the N1 on Olifants or down through Kyalami and Crowthorne, some really heavy traffic on both Olifantsfontein and on the R55. Pretoria East, trying to avoid Solomon Mashlangu between Linwood and Olympus. Traffic backed and stacked there for lengthy periods both ways. That'll be one to avoid as well. Durban, the N2 North, the crash at Gedda Road is being cleared. There's a big backlog though coming up from the cement factory. It'll take a while to normalise because of the construction there. M19 from Reservoir Hills, on your way to Claremont, New Germany. That's heavy towards Dunkeld Road. And another stationary truck this morning up at Cliffdale. Same result. Big queues from Chongweni. Major impact on Macassia Road between the N3 and M13 as motorists realise what's ahead and they duck off in big numbers on that Cassia Road. Cape Town R300 just really slow today from Delft all the way through to the Funeripic Road. In fact, probably through to about the old Paarl Road Bridge up in the Brackenfell area. And everything around Cape Town a bit slow on account of the weather. The earlier crash on the M3 inbound at Bishop's Court has been cleared, but it's left a heavy backlog through to Constantia. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So it's the Nedbank Cup round of 16, and we're looking at the Soweto Derby this weekend.
Oh, yeah, brace yourselves. No, actually, it's more like tighten your seatbelts because it is going to be a bumpy ride. We've got big matches in this round of 16 as we build up to the Derby. The defending champions, Orlando Pirates, will take on Baroka, while the Soweto Giants, Kaizer Chiefs, will host Chippa United, fresh off their best performance of the season. There's the non-league sensation and Penny Home Defenders. They have an ultimate test facing the mighty Mamelodi Sundowns. Meanwhile, Royal AM and Milford must first settle their tie before facing Sekhukhune United. And in a battle of former Chiefs coaches, Gavin Hunt's SuperSport United clash with Ernst Middendorp's Cape Town Spurs. Now, the last 16 is scheduled to be placed on the weekend of the 14th to the 16th of February. You can catch it live on SABC Sport. In the meantime, TS Galaxy made a statement in the Nedbank Cup, demolishing Vasco da Gama 7-0 at Mbombela Stadium, sending the Rockets soaring into the round of 16. Now, Kaizer Chiefs, their marketing and commercial director, Jessica Motaung, has given reasons why the African Clubs Associations has decided to set up its offices in Morocco and not South Africa, adding that CAF President Patrice Motsepe played a key role in the ACA being established. Hence, several countries were queuing to be the headquarters. Let's hear from Kaizer Chiefs marketing and commercial director, Jessica Motaung.
Countries put in their bid. Obviously, there were certain criteria that they had to meet. We had delegations visit the various countries who put in their bids, evaluate. They showed the infrastructure. They put in their proposals of what they would support from a financial point of view, as well as an infrastructure point of view. And Morocco definitely topped the charts, and we're very excited, you know. But I must say thank you to CAF. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for CAF. CAF initiated this. Patrice Motsepe, the head of CAF, president of CAF, understands as a club owner what clubs go through, the importance of strong leagues, and putting together the ACA, I think, is very innovative and key for the continent.
Soccer action, Manchester City, they struck through into the Champions League. They came from behind, beating Club Brugge 3-1 and finishing 22nd of the 22 teams to secure qualification. Liverpool lost their 100% winning record in this season's Champions League after a 3-2 defeat to PSV Eindhoven in a 5-goal thriller. And the other match saw Ollie Watkins helping Aston Villa reach the last 16. 4-2 was their victory against Celtic. And cricket action, Mohamed Bulbulia's century and strong defensive play by Letabo Palamolake and Raik Daniels helped South Africa's under-19 men draw against England in their first youth test in Stellenbosch. And that's a wrap of your sport. There'll be more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
All right, let's say good morning to Ndauling once again. While we get Ndauling on the line, let me tell you what's coming up. We'll also be touching a bit on the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR. It's an interview that we wanted to bring to you yesterday. We'll try and bring it to you within this half hour. It really has to do with a solution that the CSIR says they are hoping to bring to our country's literacy problems at the lower levels of education. We are scheduled to speak to Dr. Laurette Marais within the next half hour or so. But right, let's get back to Ndauling Lechela. Good morning to you, Ndauling. Once again, tech is the focus again this hour. Tell me about Meta expecting slower growth in sales moving forward.
That's right, Thulasizwe. Tech earnings season is in full force. Meta forecasting slower sales growth in the first quarter, casting doubt on its ability to rapidly grow its digital advertising business. Now, this growth is crucial to support investments in AI and other futuristic products. The company's projected first quarter sales for the first quarter are up to, or rather, they forecast sales of up to $41.8 billion, falling short of the average analyst estimate of $41.7 billion. Despite this, Meta reported better than expected fourth quarter sales of $48.4 billion, driven by advertising revenue from Instagram and Facebook. The company's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, is leveraging AI to transform Meta's business, aiming to increase value for its 3.35 billion daily users. But this strategy is costly. The company's move to continue investing heavily in virtual and augmented reality initiatives, as well as AI infrastructure, has left a sour taste in investors' mouths.
And speaking of tech companies and their earnings, I see that Microsoft's earnings beat market expectations.
So this comes as revenue increased by 12% and earnings jumped 10% in the fourth quarter of the year. This positive performance comes amidst concerns over the tech giant's multi-billion-dollar investments in AI as well, a growing trend in the tech industry. Now, Microsoft's AI business has seen upbeat growth with an annual revenue run rate of $13 billion, up 175% year on year. The company's data cloud business also experienced a 21% year-on-year growth, reaching $40.9 billion in revenue. This, however, was below analyst expectations. Now, CEO Satya Nadella emphasized Microsoft's commitment in innovating its tech stack and helping customers unlock the full potential of AI. CFO Amy Hood reiterated the company's focus on balancing operational discipline with continued investments in cloud and AI infrastructure. Now, Microsoft and Meta's earnings reports follow a recent sell-off in AI-exposed companies, sparked by Chinese company DeepSeek's announcement that its AI model achieved similar results to U.S. companies at a lower cost. This development, of course, raising concerns or questions about the returns on AI capital spending, estimated at over $200 billion in the past year, and the overall market value of tech giants.
All right, please give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
So trading volumes are limited in Asia, with most stocks closed on account of the Chinese New Year holidays. Meanwhile, in Japan, the Nikkei trading flat, up a tepid 0.03%. Over in the US, futures in the green following the downbeat close overnight. Traders there will be digesting tech earnings and the Fed's recent rates move or lack thereof. Then coming back home, trade upbeat, with the JSE closing yesterday's trading session in positive territory. The all-share closing over 1% higher in yesterday's session, and the rand in the meantime remaining earning range bound against the dollar. It's sitting at 18.54 to the greenback this hour.
That's Ntauleng Letshela there with your business, markets and economic update. She'll be back with one more just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Assurance, they understand my business. They are so good in terms of communication, which gives me confidence. It's a good decision that I've made to move to Assurance. I'm a winner. I want to be with the winners.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Get ready to make your life easier with TV License's new website features. We upgraded to the secure iVery 3D payment gateway and the ability to manage your account information, view, print, and download a detailed TV license statement. You can make website queries for an account and technical support, which has made things immensely easier. It is now a smooth, effortless process that can respond to all user inquiries quickly and efficiently. It is a great way to quickly get the help you need without worrying about a thing. Get started now and enjoy the convenience of TV License's new website features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV Licenses, do it for the convenience that matter.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. So it's the talking point of the day, really, that war of words that seems to be fully on between President Kagame of Rwanda and our President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Absolutely, Tula, Jumbo Africa, and a refreshing morning to the listeners. Despite this confrontation that is playing out, Tula, what we can call diplomatic showdown at the social media streets, there's an important extraordinary summit in Zimbabwe today on the same situation of SADC. But when you look, Tula, we know this simmering tension between South Africa and Rwanda dates back to almost a decade. You'll understand that even how Kagame viewed the views, how he was raising our stance that we are not a peacekeeping mission. That is also undermining the role that we are playing under SADC, and we've been playing under MONUSCO or all other UN missions that have been in Congo since 1996. So I think this tension to us have to go down to what we saw also yesterday, Tshisekedi not turning up to the meeting, Kagame not also showing down about that meeting to say, was he committed to the meeting that President Ruto called under the East Africa community. So I think let's not go to the social media to let's deal with the elephant in the room about the ceasefire in the Eastern DRC.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's where the diplomacy is playing itself out. Forget quiet diplomacy. We're now in the era of diplomacy on social media. Talk to me about these changes. We alluded to them recently, but it has now finally happened. ECOWAS no longer is what it was.
Absolutely, but to let's say what is worrying, the three members who have exited now from ECOWAS, who have pulled out, withdrawn, these were founding members of ECOWAS, and I looked at that, it's 50 years of ECOWAS formation in 1975 to 2025. What another story that we see in the pages of ECOWAS, from 15 member states reduced to now 12 member states. And this move, to us, we have said it before, we saw the writing on the wall in 2024 when they already submitted their withdrawal without following the due processes of ECOWAS. ECOWAS, but yesterday told us it is still extending their hand to say that will still allow your citizens to move around their borders, because it can be a diplomatic issue, but it should not affect citizens of the ECOWAS region.
And I see that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has been hosting his Kenyan counterpart, William Ruto.
That is quite true, Tula. They were engaging on the 12 agreements that move from education, technology, investment, trade. But I think one of the topical issues that Ruto raised was also the Middle East question of the Gaza, but also Abdel Fattah al-Sisi raising the question of the U.S. president on Palestinians who will be moved from Gaza to Egypt and Jordan, not being happy around it. But I think William Ruto should also have used his opportunity to raise the question of the Eastern DRC to us, because he has been also seized with the mediation of the Eastern DRC. We can touch on the Middle East, but we must always remember home.
Yeah. And closer to home in Mozambique, tell me about the swearing in of the 34 members of parliament from the opposition.
Thulas, this is very important because it is bringing a new move coming from Renamo, coming from MDM. The members were not sworn in. If you will even recall that before inauguration of Chapo, they decided not to go to the parliament, but now it is important with this move for them to be back in the parliament to engage from inside, not outside. And this is how the Speaker of Parliament, Ms. Margarita Talapa, also said that this is a new move that will also push for the national dialogue amongst oppositions in Mozambique.
Yeah. Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, take us to the 30th of January 1985. What happened?
Thulas, I'm taking you back to what I will call to you. It took almost 8 years for the South African Medical Council to take disciplinary action when on this day there was a court judgment from Pretoria Supreme Court ordering them to hold inquiry into the two doctors who treated Stephen Bantu Biko for 5 days before he died. So it is very important to know that there was a court order that had to push the medical council to say, investigate further what happened to Stephen Bantu Biko when he was killed in 1977. We know also the Biko files with the TRC Thulas. It went from that High Court, but it also went to the TRC hearings. Asante sana Thulas, as I was in the conversation, SFM observing the Education Month.
Thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update, just giving you a flavor and a sample of some of the key developments around the continent and its diaspora.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We've been tracking some very...
Kasha, what's the goal? We're dwelling on the highest, the summer level. What are we? Uzalo. What's the car? No maswazi cars being a mama. Pefeni wants to create and get a kaya. It's the core on SABC Plus. Don't miss Uzalo at 8:30 weekdays only on SABC 1. Zanzi for sure.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
I feel great. I feel nice. Kasha, what's the goal? We're dwelling on the highest, the summer level. What are we? Uzalo. What's the car? No maswazi cars being a mama. Pefeni wants to create and get a kaya. It's the core on SABC Plus. Don't miss Uzalo at 8:30 weekdays only on SABC 1. Zanzi for sure.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy delays across Pretoria East this morning. Solomon Mshlangu backed up both ways significantly between Olympias Drive and Linwood Road, and separately if you're coming into Pretoria on Linwood Road, there's been a crash before Solomon Mshlangu, so some delays there as well. Also staying in the capital, a crash on the M1 before Storham Full Road. That's backlogging traffic as you come down from Sefaka-Makato. And another collision. This is a high crash zone this time of the morning. The N14 Krugersdorp Highway driving to Pretoria at the Brakfontein interchange, and again traffic backlogging to the R55. Very heavy on the N1 this morning. Queues from Beyers Nordia right round to Rivonia Road. There's also that big backlog going into Germiston on the M2 between Heldnace and Refinery. Still be worth avoiding that. The run out of Durban to Pietermaritzburg still badly backed up. Shongweni through to Cliffdale. A couple of breakdowns earlier this morning. There's also a broken down vehicle causing a backlog on your way to New Germany and Pinetown along the M19 just after Reservoir Hills. It gets heavy. And Durban's M2 North is a bad backlog from the M7 all the way up through to Westwood Mall due to that earlier crash up at Umgena Road, which is being cleared. Cape Town, the crash on the M3 inbound at Wynberg Hill is being cleared, but it's a very busy morning from Constantia right through to Hospital Bend is the extent of that delay. And the R300, an indication of how busy it is around Cape Town. You sit from Stellenbosch Arterial up to about the old Paarl Road exit in the Brackenfell area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
7 minutes to 8 here on the Morning Brief. It's good to be in your company. Hey, I've got to acknowledge that I do see your calls. A lot of you calling in about the various topics that we have covered this morning, as well as other issues that are on your mind this morning, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes. And I realize that we've not made time. It's been intense. We've not had time to take some of your calls. We will do so just after 8 a.m. That's an undertaking from my side. But for now, let's turn to this story. We constantly highlight the low literacy, literacy challenges in the country's primary school system. The Progress in International Reading Literacy Study is one that gets quoted quite a lot, and it has shown that 81% of South African 10-year-olds cannot read with comprehension. The Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, says this result underscores the urgent need for effective literacy improvement interventions, and they believe that they've made some progress towards that direction. Let's hear about it from Dr. Lorette Marais, who is a senior researcher at the CSIR. Before we talk about the Ngiaqonda project, Doc, let's start with the problem itself. From your reading that led to you going down this innovation path, what's the extent of the literacy problem in the lower ranks of our schooling system?
Good morning. Yes, we have a literacy crisis. The latest international benchmarking study that was done in 2021 showed that 81% of South African learners cannot read for basic meaning. That means they cannot answer simplistic questions about a text that they've read, and this is across all languages of South Africa, even though the problem is more pronounced for learners who speak an African language at home.
And when we say cannot read with comprehension or for meaning, does that mean that at the very least they can read, but if you were to ask them, what was that story about? What was that you just read? That's where the difficulty would arise, I imagine.
Well, it's difficult to even say whether they can read, because if they cannot answer basic questions, whether they are able to pronounce the sounds or not, that's not part of the test. The test is a silent reading exercise where they have to answer questions at different levels of comprehension. And our learners, 81% of them cannot even reach the lowest benchmark. So we have no idea whether they can pronounce it necessarily. That was not part of the study. But they have no sense of what they are reading.
Yeah. And this may not be directly your forte, and please feel free to say so if it doesn't fall directly in your line of inquiry and study. But do you have any understanding as to the reasons why that there's not that transfer of that skill at that point of education, of reading with meaning? Is it in the way that teaching happens? Is it the materials? What is it?
So there are many factors, but one that I will highlight from the literature is, and that is one that is important to address, is that the African languages, our languages in South Africa, have very different characteristics from a language like English. And so techniques that have been developed to teach children literacy in English don't necessarily adapt well to our languages. And so one of the problems is in simply the techniques that are used and how teachers are trained to teach literacy in our languages is not necessarily as effective as it should be.
All right, so let's turn then to the solution that you are bringing as the CSIR. You have worked on something called the Ngiaqonda project, and the result is an app. How will this app work, and how will it help address the challenge you and I just discussed?
The application is essentially an interface for speech and language technology that has been developed for our languages. So the children are exposed to sentences that are either written out loud or written, or they can play them out loud using a synthetic voice. So they can listen to sentences, they can see them, and we've gamified the approach so they interact with text in a dynamic way. all powered by technology that's been developed specifically for our languages.
So I'm going to ask you to say that slowly to me. So you've gamified it, and I assume that speaks to the levels of engagement that you are seeking to have with young people. Yeah.
Yes, so let me give you an example. One of the gamified interfaces of the application is where a learner can listen to a prompt that might be in their home language, that the speech is automatically generated. So it's not costly to produce. We get a computer to do that. And then we use natural language generation to generate possible tokens that the learner can use to reconstruct what they've heard. So either they can listen, for instance, to a Sepedi sentence that's been automatically generated, and then automatically Sepedi words pop up on the screen, and they have to select the right ones and one for one reconstruct what they are hearing. So that trains them to correlate what they are hearing with what they see on the screen. But we've also changed it up so that because our learners need to learn English, most of them from grade 4 onwards are taught in English. So we can also make them listen to an English sentence and have them reconstruct the translation in Sepedi. That means they have to understand what they hear and what they see, or we can switch it around. They listen to a Sepedi sentence, and they have to read the English words that pop up and construct the translation. And in that way, we engage their meaning, understanding of the sentence.
And you've been piloting this with isiZulu as well as Sepedi, and you say that it is curriculum approved. Tell me about its applicability and the ability to roll it out even wider.
So what I would say is that it's curriculum aligned. We've used CAPS content to make sure that it aligns exactly with the vocabulary and the reading level of typical grade 3s with whom we've piloted. So we've used vocabulary and making the sentences the right complexity for these learners is really important.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. Sounds like a fascinating development. Let's see how it plays out in the literacy crisis that we face in the country, in the lower rungs of our education system. That's Dr. Laurette Marais, who is a senior researcher at the CSIR. Bringing us to 8 a.m., let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news. And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43187.
In our top stories, a war of words between South Africa and Rwanda's presidents and man accused of raping 2 nurses to appear in court. Good morning. The Rwandan President Paul Kagame says Rwanda is ready for a confrontation with South Africa if necessary. His comments follow a claim by President Cyril Ramaphosa that the M23 rebels and Rwanda's Defence Force were responsible for the deaths of 13 South African soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Kagame has also said South Africa cannot be a peacemaker.
I spoke with the President of South Africa, who sought me out to speak with me on this matter because of their involvement in Eastern Congo. And he's also there pretending to be playing a peacemaker role, and he has a force that has been fighting alongside FDLR and has been fighting the M23 on the instructions of Tshisekedi, because these are people who are not supposed to be in Congo.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the U.S. move to temporarily cease its funding of HIV and AIDS programs around the world under the new Trump administration will have a limited impact on South Africa's fight against the disease. Motsoaledi was speaking to journalists at the Cabinet Lekgotla in Pretoria. He says the South African government, together with a small portion of funds from the Global Fund, finances the bulk of prevention and care programs. The minister says his department is requesting Treasury to cover a 17% shortfall in funding from the withdrawal of the U.S. President's emergency plan for AIDS relief funding, which has been running in South Africa and other developing countries since 2003.
We have got an army of 271,000 people, 606 on the ground in the 27 districts fighting HIV and AIDS. 256,452 are funded by us as South Africa from our own fiscus. That leaves us with 15,145 people. Those are the ones who will be affected by whatever withdrawal is there. We are buying ARVs on our own with 10% from Global Fund, which is not affected by this. So our biggest problem will be the salaries and the operational cost of those people that I've just mentioned.
City of Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis says there's insufficient evidence at this stage to justify the removal of councillors J.P. Smith and Xanthia Limburg from the mayoral committee following a meeting with SAPS. Smith is the MMC for Safety and Security as well as the Deputy Federal Chairperson of the DA's national structure. Hill-Lewis requested a briefing from SAPS following the execution of a search warrant at the offices of the MACO members.
I requested a briefing from SAPS following the execution of a search warrant at the offices of 2 mayoral committee members on 24 Jan. I've met with SAPS, who were unable to provide any indication of whether substantive evidence of wrongdoing exists. SAPS confirmed to me that the execution of a search warrant is in no way indicative of a crime, and I have not been provided with any other evidence of alleged wrongdoing by either of the MACO members in question. In the circumstances, unless there is further evidence forthcoming, there is simply no basis to suspend either of them from the mayoral committee. Full cooperation is being provided by the MACO members to aid SAPS in their inquiry.
Meanwhile, Hill-Lewis says there are crucial differences between this and the Malusi Boy tender fraud case, as SAPS was able to provide substantive evidence of alleged corruption. Former President Jacob Zuma's daughter, Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, is expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Her court appearance is believed to be connected to the 2021 July unrest. Nonjabula Mtungwa Makamu reports.
It's not clear whether Duduzile Zuma Sambudla will be facing similar charges to those of the 65 alleged instigators. Zuma Sambudla, who is also the MK Party's Member of Parliament, is the latest to be charged in connection with the 2021 civil unrest. The riots affected KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng and claimed the lives of 354 people. Businesses and critical infrastructure were also affected. The violence broke out following the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma for violating a constitutional court order after failing to appear before the Zondo State Capture Commission of Inquiry.
A 27-year-old man who was arrested in connection with the Gachwene clinic break-in and rape of 2 night shift nurses will this morning appear at the Polokwane Magistrates Court in Limpopo. The accused was previously charged with the possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition. Pimani Baloy reports.
Police say additional charges that relate to the Gachwene clinic break-in are expected to be added today. Members of the media were not allowed to be present when the accused made his first court appearance a week ago. At that time, police said an identity parade by some witnesses in the Gachwene rape case was pending. The accused identity was also withheld. Police say he's also linked to cases of attempted murder and robbery at the Ramaja clinic.
Recapping the top story, the Rwandan President Paul Kagame says Rwanda is ready for a confrontation with South Africa if necessary. His comments follow a claim by President Cyril Ramaphosa that the M23 rebels and Rwanda's Defence Force were responsible for the deaths of 13 South African soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43187.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still a lot of traffic on Joburg's N3 at this hour, coming out of Germiston Alberton from Elan's Interchange all the way through to Van Buren. Just off the highway, the M2 is badly backed up. We've been warning you since before 6 o'clock this morning of these heavy delays going from the N3 down towards the Refinery Road. Lots of traffic lights out over Joburg, including some around Hyde Park, really from sort of Craighall down to Hyde Park and into Rosebank. Lots of lights down there, so there's a real big backlog of traffic. Lights are out on Peter Place at Karen Street before you get to William Mandela, so some extra delays there, and lights out on the R55 coming from Blue Hills down through Crowthorne and into Kyalami. That's all very heavily backed up. Linwood Road between Olympus Drive, Solomon Mshlanga, I beg your pardon, between Olympus Drive and Linwood Road, very heavy on Solomon Mshlanga both ways. Also Linwood Road coming up, driving to Pretoria into that junction, very heavy as well. Durban's N2 between the cement factory area and Westwood Mall stays heavily backed after an earlier crash. Cliffdale, Pietermaritzburg bound, big queue still there after a couple of broken down trucks this morning. And if you're driving into Cape Town, the N1 today from Plattekloof Hill, busy all the way through to the elevated freeway. R300 still queuing, passing Kales River up to Brackenfell. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It's cricket. The Joburg Super Kings are in trouble. Can they recover against the Paarl Royals tonight? And in soccer, the Soweto Giants are bracing themselves for Nedbank Cup battles in the round of 16. All these sports stories and more at around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 9 minutes after 8 on this Thursday. Good morning, folks. We're into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. The conversation is lively and it's lit, as they say. It is about the war of words that seems to have erupted between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the President of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame. Let me just give you quick examples of what we're talking about, and in a moment, I'll be taking all of your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes. In his statement yesterday, President Ramaphosa makes this statement: the fighting, alluding to the fighting in which 13 South African soldiers have now died, saying the fighting is the result of an escalation by the rebel group M23, and this is the line, and Rwanda Defense Force RDF militia engaging the armed forces of the DRC. The word militia, immediately President Kagame of Rwanda says, one, it says a few important clarifications for the record. One, the Rwanda Defense Force is an army, not a militia. So there's a lot that has been said by President Kagame in response to statements from President Ramaphosa as well as statements by other leaders of the South African government about the situation. But I suppose the line that has got all of us talking is his sixth point in that series of points that he makes, President Kagame, that is. The sixth point, after summing up how the Summit DRC, the mission in which South Africa is taking part in the DRC, is not really a peacekeeping force, but actually a belligerent force that is backed by the DRC government. He then goes on to the point number 6, where he says, if South Africa wants to contribute to peaceful solutions, that is well and good. But South Africa is in no position to take on the role of a peacemaker or mediator. And if South Africa prefers confrontation, Rwanda will deal with the matter in that context any day. That's President Kagame of Rwanda. So I see a lot of you have been wanting to engage with this matter, and we'll open the lines in just a moment. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Whether you're having a early, snoozy, tantrumy, chill,
frustrating. Or jokey. Morning. Mornings love McDonald's, so choose happy and enjoy a Burry Burger double and a short filter coffee for only R39.90 from 6 to 10:30 a.m. at McDonald's.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, just before taking your calls, let me bring in SABC News International News Editor, Sophie Mkwena, just for a take on what we've seen. Sophie, good morning, and thank you for your time this morning. It's extraordinary, is it not, what has happened, the conversation between President Cyril Ramaphosa. President Ramaphosa has been alluding to conversations he's had with President Kagame, and President Kagame gives a different version, accusing South Africa of even going as far as saying that there have been lies that have been peddled by President Ramaphosa and his officials. Where does that leave us in as far as the diplomatic effort is concerned?
We are in a very dangerous situation right now because, remember, we still have to repatriate the bodies from Sake, not even Goma. You have to ensure the troops both in Goma and in Sake have supplies. Now, you can't use any DRC leadership to negotiate passage and access. You have to deal with M23 and Rwanda because you have to use that Rwanda DRC border. Now, these tensions, if not resolved, they are going to delay the process of repatriation because the airport in Goma is not in use. We still have our troops trapped in the base in Sake and also in Goma. So we are in a very, very dangerous situation. Secondly, this war talk doesn't help the situation either in the Great Lakes region. You have been SABC correspondent on international stories. You know better. You're based in Harare. These kinds of talks on the African continent, how they can easily escalate and different countries taking different postures, isolating either Rwanda or South Africa. So we have to be careful how we navigate this now. You now need senior people on the continent with experience, with institutional memory to speak to Kagame to pull back, to speak to Tshisekedi to pull back, to speak to all these countries to cease fire, not only military and guns, but also war talk. So that's what needs to happen now.
But Sophie, it's becoming clear that South Africa cannot, at this point, play any meaningful role as a peace broker or mediator. President Kagame says as much in his communication. I can't imagine that will change anytime soon, certainly not within this current context of trying to de-escalate the situation.
It's not going to change. South Africa cannot be a mediator or facilitator now. The reason being, South Africa is supporting the DRC forces. When you look at the mandate of the SADC force that was deployed in the DRC. Yes, with MONUSC, South Africa is part of MONUSC for peacekeeping. But this DRC deployment is raising lots of questions. Now, there's no way we are going to be seen as neutral. The same with Rwanda. You can't expect Rwanda to facilitate the talks or mediate because we know that their views around M23. Therefore, you need a neutral person. That neutral person can still be a South African or a Rwandan or a Burundian, Ugandan, between these two regions, East Africa and SADC. However, it must be someone who understands the problem of the Great Lakes region, but secondly, who will command respect from all role players and be accepted by all role players.
Yeah. All right, Sophie, let's leave it there for this moment. We thought we'd bring you in before we take the conversation forward with our listeners, their own reflections. I'm just reading point number 4 in that bulleted and numbered post on X by President Kagame. There's a sense of being spicy as well, where he says, President Ramaphosa has never given a quote-unquote warning of any kind unless it was delivered in his local language, which I do not understand. So, yeah, it just tells you where we are in terms of the diplomatic maneuverings and the war of words there. So let's take your calls then. Let's speak to Matlakala in Davidton. Good morning to you, Matlakala. You want to talk to me about this topic, the DRC, this morning?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. You know, my take on this matter, Thulasizwe, I think the situation that our soldiers find themselves in, whereby they are ill-equipped, it has to do with us as South Africans, because I think we talk too much and we know too much. If you can remember, during the government of Thabo Mbeki, the Minister of Defense was still Mr. Terrell Kota. We criticized our government when they procured arms. Some of us within the public space, we said, you know, we are not in war, so we don't need arms. Here we are now. Our soldiers are in DRC. They are ill-equipped. We're still blaming the government.
Yeah, wow. What a take. Thank you for that, Matlakala. I don't even know what to say in response to what you are saying. But yeah, just reflecting the public discourse about how much we spend on defense as a country and now the consequences of where we find ourselves. What do you think of what Matlakala has said? Let's see. Matthew in Cape Town, good morning. You also want to talk about the same issue.
Yes, and I agree with him 110%. Let me remind you, in that inquiry into Jacob Zuma's arms deal, there was a certain Admiral Hicks, who was the flag officer in Simonstown, and he stated the very same thing. We need to supply the military with arms. And it was the opposition parties and the general public that criticized that thing. But now you are criticizing the military. You are stating to the military, you guys are useless, you guys are no good, you guys do nothing. But now we're in a peacekeeping mission in the DRC, and our people are dying.
Yeah,
our people are dying.
Sure.
Because it's so ironic that we're in a situation we are totally disarmed by this whole thing of the public not wanting to, because I can tell you now, the government can rescue and give bailout packages for ESCOM, they can give for Transnet, they can give for each and every parastatal, but it's so difficult to giving it to the Defence Force. Why? Because you need military people.
Sure.
Not guys in suits stealing money from the bailouts of government.
Right.
That is the reason why it's a mess that you are in, and I don't think we need a couple of years and a mess of billions of rands to fix this issue. Thank you.
Matthew in Cape Town, thank you for that. Let me take a call from Arnold in Mahikeng. Good morning, also on the DRC this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Thulas.
Yes.
I won't take you time
too
much because there are many people. I'll just say the first thing. You know, there's a saying in our language in Lingala. They say, meaning that if you see the baby chicken becoming bigger and bigger,
before you say it, you translate it. Say it slowly for me, Arnold. What did you say? What's the saying?
Okay. Soki mwana soso azako vimba. Mwana soso is the baby chicken. Mwana, like in all the
Sose mwana soso
is a child.
Yeah.
Azako vimba.
Azako vimba.
It's just swallow. Becoming bigger and bigger, you know.
What does it mean?
Mama naya za pembeni means the mother is not far away.
Right.
So what it means that Kagame can't talk like that if the mother is not far away. And who is the mother in that case? That is my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that Israel is behind Rwanda because of the case of South Africa being in front of the ICC. So that is I can't prove it, but that is my hypothesis.
Yeah.
They just want to give South Africa a bloody nose because of that.
Yeah.
The second thing, Rwanda has fought with most of the southern African countries without noticing it. Rwanda has fought Namibia and Zimbabwe in Bakongo. Rwanda has fought South Africa And Rwanda indirectly also has fought South Africa in Central African Republic. And Rwanda also is in the backyard of South Africa in Mozambique. And Rwanda has assassinated people on the South African soil, and Rwanda has killed South African peacekeepers, and Rwanda has killed a medic because there was an ambulance with a cross and the N23 RDF back. They shot at that ambulance.
All right, Arnold,
so
let's leave
that's
it
what
there.
I wanted to tell you.
Thank you. Let's leave it there for this morning. That speculation that Arnold advances around the relations between Rwanda and Israel. I must say, Arnold, I'm not going to weigh in on it because, you know, I've not really read up on it authoritatively, but I will say you're not alone. I have seen that. I've seen a few people alluding to that that kind of speculation. That's as far as I'll go. I'll take more of your calls. And Mlu, I see your call, and I see that you've been holding for quite some time. I'll start with you in just a moment.
The Toffees are well aware that only maximum points will help them out of the bottom half.
Lewin, great feat, brilliance, absolutely superbly done. Calvert-Lewin for Everton.
Meanwhile, the Foxes believe they are in dire need of victory to run away from trouble.
It's Jordan Ayew, back in goal. Jordan Ayew has scored for Leicester City, and those Leicester fans are celebrating wildly.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb contest, Everton FC versus Leicester City FC, on Saturday 1 February at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
This new year, make it your goal to save on the insurance for your older car. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million rand liability cover. So if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million rand. Add motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Let me take a call from Mlu in Durban. Good morning to you, Mlu. You want to talk to me about budget cuts and their impact across government?
Thank you. Good morning, boss.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Makuja, there's one thing that I want to come into in the space when it comes to budget cuts. This thing, Makuja, is raising havoc within the government space. And I don't know the issue and the problem. My question to the doctor when it comes in, Makuja, is the question of saying, when are we coming out of this? Because if you remember, Tito Mboweni raised this matter way back, turning memorial, with the issue of the budget cut, and it was far away to say, please, let's tighten our belts, you see. But now this thing is hitting hard, and it's creating a problem for us. Number two, the issue of the Congo. Paul Kagame, I'm telling you, Makuj, this guy is a proxy of Israel. I want to allude to the point. He's correct, because this guy is now working indirectly for Israel, because Israel wants to create something. You remember with the Western Cape. Lots of the Jews from Israel are moving to the Western Cape, and for whatever reason, only the DA and their setup knows what is happening, and that is the problem. And mind you, Makoto, the very same guy settled their scores in Johannesburg by assassinating the opposition parties, the opposition leaders in Rwanda who ran and came in South Africa, and those people were assassinated in South Africa by the spies of Rwanda. So this guy wants to settle the score with us.
Sure. All right, let's leave it there for this morning. That is Mlu in Durban. Just to the point that Mlu has been making about budget cuts before he pivoted to the issue around the DRC and Rwanda's involvement. I see a voice note here, and I think it has to do with that and the situation in as far as schools are concerned.
Hi, Thulas. I need your help with something urgent. My mom works at a Quintal 1 school in Lansera, meaning that they serve the poorest within that community, and they have been without electricity for the past 2 weeks because the Gauteng Department of Education did not pay their Eskom bill. Previously, the department used to allocate money to the school for them to pay for their own utilities, but as of last year, the government decided to manage the payments themselves, and now the school is stuck in this situation. They rely heavily on ICT resources, such as tablets, laptops and smart boards to learn, all provided by the same government, but none of them work without power. Teachers don't even bring their lunch anymore because they cannot use the fridge or use the microwave to warm up their food. Other Quintile 1 schools in the Diepsloot and Cosmo area are facing the same issue. It's the start of the year and these schools cannot function like this. We need the government to step in and resolve this urgently.
Yeah, so that sounds like a situation of concern, and hopefully someone in the Department of Education in Gauteng can respond to that situation. Basically, it's about schools. Some schools, we're told, having their electricity cut because that electricity bill has not been paid because it's now been centralized and being paid by the government itself. Let me take a voice note about the comments of the Rwandan President Paul Kagame before I return to your calls.
The whole Paul Kagame and Ramaphosa departure really shows how our citizens have lost confidence in this government. Rather than believing Cyril Ramaphosa, it seems people err on the side of what Kagame is saying. We should not be distracted by side issues. The real issues here is that our people have lost confidence and the reasons why the soldiers are in the DRC. That is what the government needs to fight.
All right, thank you for that. Let me take a call from Bond in Kabeja. Good morning to you, Bond. You also want to weigh in on the DRC situation.
Thank you very much, Thulas, and your listeners. I've stopped by the wayside. I'm going to East London for a bail application.
Yeah.
The domestic laws and the international customary law impose duties on states, what is called duty of care. That is why for the past 2 days, listeners were saying, rather than letting our soldiers die in DRC Congo, bring them back, it highlights the nub of the issue. A state has got a duty of care for its citizens and nationals inside the country. That's why we look after our own in hospitals and prisons, etc. Even those abroad, you must look after them. That's why they are embassies. So if we are in a foreign mission, both international law and domestic law says that we must look after our own, a duty of care. In other words, equip them adequately for what they are doing there. Yes, a war is a question of life and death, but it doesn't mean we must be reckless. We must act reasonably. If we cannot fulfill that duty of equipping them adequately, we have to recall them because there's no obligation for us to be there. Article 43 of the United Nations Charter says that the UN Security Council has got to have a standby force of all the members, 200 members of the United Nations, for deployment in all war sports. But conventions or gentlemen's or ladies' agreement has led to ad hoc agreements. Otherwise, this issue is supposed to be handled by the Security Council of the United Nations everywhere.
Right.
We understand.
Yeah.
So that is why I'm saying if there's no duty of care, an interested citizen can approach the Constitutional Court to direct access for what is called a mandamus application. In other words, forcing the government to provide that adequate care.
Sure.
Second and lastly, the families of those that have lost their lives because of inadequate care can sue the government for negligent loss of life.
Sure. Wow.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That's Bond in Kabeja there, highlighting the legal aspects and the obligations that arise when a state deploys its troops anywhere in the world, particularly as they relate to South Africa. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, SADC will today convene an extraordinary summit to discuss the crisis in the DRC. Last week, some soldiers were killed during a fierce battle with the M23 rebels in Goma City. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the U.S. move to temporarily cease its funding of HIV and AIDS programs around the world will have a limited impact on South Africa's fight against the disease. And members of Parliament's Land Reform and Rural Development Portfolio Committee say their planned meeting with the Amazulu King needs to go ahead as soon as possible. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretoria, capital city. First up, big crash, big delays. N1 south going down to Atterbury Road. The queue back through the N4. Witbank Highway, multiple lanes are closed there. Linwood Road coming in towards Pretoria from the east. That's heavy up to Solomon Mshlangu. And Solomon Mshlangu, you are still queuing heavily as you have been all morning between Linwood Road and Olympus. drive on that section both ways. The N14, Krugersdorp Highway, again queuing up towards the N1 Barakfontein interchange. A lot of traffic into the Craighall area coming out of Randburg. There's some faulty lights on the Unsmuts, and big traffic into the Santon area. Peter Place, Republic Road, onto Winnie Mandela down in towards the Parkmore side of Santon Drive. Very heavy. Trucks causing chaos again between Durban and Pietermaritzburg. If you're Durban bound, truck broken down at Ashburton. Big delays built back past the Market Road exit. Another truck, probably the third or fourth this morning. Won't be the last today at Cliffdale. So heavy from Shongweni. Then another truck broken down around Umlos Road, causing an additional delay as well. Cape Town, very busy around the Newlands and Claremont and Rondebosch areas. Campground, Palmyras, the main roads, all of those unusual. And everything in Cape Town, or towards Cape Town City, on a bit of a ghost on account of the weather. N1 from Platycliffe down to city centre. M3 still stubbornly slow from Constantia right through to Hospital Bend. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So the Joburg Super Kings are in a spot of bother. Can they recover against the Paarl Royals?
Tonight is the night. We will find
We'll
out.
find out,
Yes.
yeah.
When that first ball is being bowled, we'll find out with the Joburg Super Kings. They've hit a bit of a rough patch to us. This is the SA20 campaign. They had a crushing defeat to Pretoria Capitals, who pulled off that bonus point win to shake up the playoff race. Coach Stephen Fleming saying it's all about mental toughness now, as the Joburg Super Kings need to bounce back fast against the table-topping Paarl Royals tonight at Wanderers. The Royals, already through to the playoffs, are looking to extend their dominance beyond Boland Park, while England's Joe Root plays his final SA20 game before heading back to international duty. Other cricket action: Mohamed Bulbulia's century and strong defensive play by Letabo Pahlamolaka and Raik Daniels helping South Africa's under-19 men draw against England in their first youth test at the Kutsenberg Oval in Stellenbosch. Chasing 317, Bulbulia scored 114 off 154 balls. But after his dismissal, South Africa was at 236 for 8. Pahlamolaka's unbeaten 45 of 85 balls, together with Daniels, that's Raik Daniels, 24 of 51 deliveries, ensuring that dramatic draw. Soccer, crunch time in the Nedbank Cup as the round of 16 fixtures promising high drama. Defending champions Orlando Pirates will take on Baroka FC, while Soweto Giants Kaizer Chiefs host Chippa United, fresh off their best performance of the season. Non-league sensation Impeni Home Defenders, they have the ultimate test ahead, facing the mighty Mamelodi Sundowns. Meanwhile, Royal AM and Milford FC must first settle their tie before facing Sekhukhune United. And in a battle of former Chiefs coaches, Gavin Hunt's SuperSport United clash with Ernst Middendorp's Cape Town Spurs. The last 16 is scheduled to be played on the weekend of the 14th to the 16th of February. You can catch it live on SABC Sport. In the meantime, Kaizer Chiefs Marketing and Commercial Director Jessica Motaung says the African Clubs Association, ACA, has decided to set up its offices in Morocco and not South Africa, adding that CAF President Patrice Motsepe played a key role in the ACA being established, hence several countries were queuing to be the headquarters. SABC Sport reported exclusively that the African Football League had been delayed due to the congested calendar. Motaung confirms this as well.
They are, and hence I think why that is on hold, and it's one of the topics we'll have to discuss to understand what is the future of that competition and what will happen. And also the welfare of players, very key. I mean, players are playing a lot of games right now. I think a player's career is much shorter because of how much they play, and the impact on their bodies. So player welfare, very important, and that is something that we will also be engaging with the mother body with.
And finally, running just got a whole lot more fun. The African Biathlon, a brand new fitness movement backed by Nedbank, is bringing South Africans together for a 5-kilometer run, followed by a social experience of their choice, whether it's coffee, local art, or even a post-run party. It's all about blending fitness with fun. This biathlon kicks off in Johannesburg in February, all the way to March, with the community running crews leading the way.
Where do I sign up?
For the wine tasting or the running?
Listen, I'm there for the after party.
Oh, wow. You can see Thulasizwe loves to run things around here. Anyway, we'll have more with John Genica. That's more sport around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan, running out of here.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again, Dowling. Tell me about Barloworld's buyout. It's receiving the green light from an independent expert. What's that about?
So Rothschild & Co. is that independent expert, or rather consultancy firm, that has endorsed the proposed 23 billion rand management-led buyout of Barloworld, deeming the offer fair and reasonable. The independent expert's evaluation ranged from 105.53 cents to 119.42 cents per share, below the 123 rand per share offer made by CEO Dominic Siwela and his Saudi partners. Now, shareholders, including Silchester International Investors, which is pushing for a higher offer, will vote on the proposal on the 26th of February. The transaction has raised concerns about governance due to Siwela's dual role as CEO and a central figure in the consortium. To address these concerns, Barloworld constituted an independent board, implemented governance protocols, and ensured Rothschild & Co. had equal access to due diligence information. Now, the deal's completion is complicated by Barloworld's Russian unit, which has been impacted by sanctions. Rothschild & Co. valued the unit based on its potential to repatriate funds rather than its operational value. Additionally, Barloworld is investigating potential export control violations related to its Russian business, which could trigger a material adverse change event, allowing the buyer to withdraw from the deal.
Yeah. Speaking of buyouts, tell me about Anglo American concluding the deal to sell its Australian coal business.
So the miner has completed the sale of its 33.3% stake in Jellenbar Group to Zashfin for $1 billion. The transaction includes the Jellenbar East and Lake Vermont steel-making coal mines in Australia. And the sale, of course, is part of Anglo American's portfolio transformation plan, which aims to simplify the company's operations and focus on its core business, copper, iron ore, and crop nutrients. Company CEO Duncan Wanblom stated the group is pleased to complete the first step in the divestment of its steel-making coal portfolio, realizing $1 billion of cash proceeds sooner than expected. Now, Anglo American is also making progress on the sale of its remaining steel-making coal portfolio to Peabody for up to $3.8 billion. The company is on track to demerge its platinum businesses by mid-2025.
All right, please give us a sense of what the trading day is likely to look like when trade resumes on the JSE, but also elsewhere in the world.
So looking at what's been playing out in global markets, particularly Asia, the JSE is likely to kick the day off in the green. Traders here at home will be eyeing the SARB's first MPC meeting for the year. Ahead of that decision, the local unit has held up well, trading at 18.54 against the dollar. Meanwhile, in Wall Street, futures are in the green. Traders on that front digesting tech earnings from Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla. Then moving over to Asia, trade quite choppy, trade quite thin because of that Chinese New Year holiday. Japan's Nikkei, however, slightly recovering, up 0.2%.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela. She's kept you updated on business, the economy, and the markets over the last 3 hours here on the Morning Brief.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
So I've got to give credit to the initial reporting of IOL on this story. On Thursday, the 16th of January, an article appearing on IOL in which the Gauteng Health MEC, Nomantu Nkomo was quoted as having said she will ask for permission from parents to have the contraceptive Implanon the implant administered among girl children of school-going age. According to the article, the MEC acknowledged the necessity of parental consent, but reportedly said once the parent has signed the consent form, the learner will be required to undergo the implant-on-implant procedure. The MEC's statement, as you can imagine, has sparked outrage and concern from those who say this act would take away the autonomy of young girls. Among those who've raised concern is Kuselwa Dyanti, who is an attorney in the Health Rights Program at Section 27. Good morning to you, Kuselwa, and thank you for your time. So we did try to reach out to the department, and hopefully we will hear directly from the MEC, because this is that kind of a conversation where you are better off hearing directly from the horse's mouth. But from your efforts on your side, have you been able to establish what the true contours of what the MEC Nomantunko Moralihuku is proposing here?
Thank you, Thulasizwe, and thank you for having me in your show. I'll just first mention what steps we have taken as the organization, Section 27. Of course, we had to address a letter to the MEC, putting this into her attention, that her approach in dealing with teenage pregnancy is indeed has an unlawful element and is misguided, and it's something that as an organization we cannot support. Of course, we do support initiatives that aimed in addressing teenage pregnancy, but her approach is misguided and unlawful. So we have addressed that letter to her, and on our side, we have not received any response.
Yeah.
We are waiting, and I hope eventually she will be able to address this issue on your show as well.
So she acknowledges, according to the report, the necessity of parental consent. So the parent would need to sign a consent form, but then says once that is done, that's the end of the matter. The pupil would need to have this procedure, this implant, administered to them. What's problematic about that, as far as you understand it, and how the law plays itself out?
I think the MEC is also aware of the current laws that are in place, and that the parental consent has limits. In terms of the Children's Act, Thulasizwe, children above the age of 12 can actually consent themselves. And parental consent is only required when the child is at the age of, below the age of 12. So now that you are, I think the other issue is that she's introducing these long-term contraceptives on a compulsory basis. That means now, as at the moment the parent signed that consent form, the child has no option but to allow the administration of long-term contraceptive body. Even though in Section 134, 2 of the Children's Act gives the child that freedom to make their reproductive choices and also to practice body autonomy. So that means now once the parent signed that consent form, all of those rights are being taken away from young girls, which is the issue that we are raising.
And I imagine that you would link this already to other phenomena of concern around forced sterilization in some sectors of the healthcare system. Is that part of the problem that you see, that it will perhaps in a way play in line with some of those phenomena?
Of course, Thulasizwe, any attempt of forceful administering of contraceptives, it does, it is reminiscent of coerced and forced sterilization. There is no other way of it. But if the MEC wants to introduce contraceptions at schools, number one, you cannot introduce them on a compulsory basis, and you cannot only have one form of contraceptive that you want these young girls to have. The law allows already.
Yeah, Kusel, Apologies, Kuselwa. Your line is really letting us down. I mean, it started a few minutes ago, but it does seem to be deteriorating. But I think we've gotten the gist. Yeah, even now, as you try, I'm really battling. Kuselwa Janti is an attorney in the Health Rights Program at Section 27. Unfortunately, the line there starting to let us down even before we got to talking about the alternative solutions that Section 27 are proposing. And as I did say, we are still endeavoring and trying to get the health MEC, Nomantunko Morali Hoko, to, come on the show and talk extensively about what this proposal is, whether or not it was captured, accurately in terms of what she's proposing.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's take one or two of your voice notes now. Let me take this one on the situation with South Africa and Rwanda as it relates to the DRC.
Hi, morning, SAFM and the listeners. The president of Rwanda is a president. Those harsh statements, that's what we expect from our president. So you see how this other nation will take us. The president must start uttering strong and serious words about South Africa.
Yeah, so the resolve of our president is what you are calling for. You want to see more and more of that.
Good morning to us and SAFM listeners. While there is war waits between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Rwanda president, the priority now, I think, for us as South Africans, it's our soldiers to come back home safe. Then after that, they can carry on as much as they like. But Cyril Ramaphosa must just make the priority of our soldiers to come back home safe. We need them home safe. Thanks to Lucy in Gauteng.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lucy. You did hear from the Deputy Minister, Bantu Holomisa, that the talks are ongoing with the UN to try and facilitate exactly that, an exit for South African soldiers in the DRC. Part of their complaint and cry, Lucy, is that according to the version given by the Defense Minister, Angie Motshekga, the South African troops basically feel they were let down by the forces alongside whom they were fighting. Basically, the version is that the DRC troops, many of them, surrendered to the M23, and Burundian troops, and I don't know, maybe that came from General Holomisa, I can't remember now, maybe I'm confusing the two. But anyway, the version from the Defense Ministry is that the DRC troops, many of them surrendered to M23. The Burundian forces, many of them did not keep their flank that they were supposed to have been watching. And it's that point that South Africa decided, you know what, let's get into a truce with the M23 and stay in our bases.
Good morning, Thulas and SAFM listeners. Listening and looking at the President, Mme Motshekga and Ntate Holomisa, one could tell that there is no understanding of the situation in the DRC, and somehow there's no truth in what they are telling us. It's so unfortunate that we find ourselves in this situation. Slylo Polokwane.
Thank you for that, Slylo. I mean, it's not, that perception is not helped by the contradictions. There's certainly a contradiction between what General Bantu Holomisa said about receiving reports as early as Thursday and Friday that the soldiers were running of ammunition and that being shipped by Saturday, and the version of the Defense Minister, Angie Motshekga, that says at no point did any of the leaders of that mission say that they were running or out of ammunition. And the minister was in the DRC last week when the fighting intensified, and she says in all her interactions, none of the leaders of the military did indicate that way. All right, we'll continue with taking more of your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes, but let's take a quick traffic update now.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's been a very busy Thursday around Pretoria. Let's start with an update there from the nation's capital this morning. We've had heavy backlogs on Solomon Mshlangu through Pretoria East going to and from the Linwood Road junction. Still very heavy, particularly if you're driving from Silver Lakes going westbound down towards Olympus Drive. Behind that, Linwood Road is heavily backed up coming up from Lombardy Estate through Solomon Mshlangu and then into sort of the direction Pretoria. And just off the highway, just off the roads, there's a big delay on the highway as well. This is the N1 going south. The crash at Atterbury. 2 lanes are closed and very heavy backlogging going on there. The N14, the Krugersdorp Highway, still heavy up to the Bruckfontein interchange, and a lot of traffic lights out this morning through Craighall and Dunkeld, so between Randburg and Rosebank. So very heavy traffic going on there. Durban, Pietermaritzburg, if you're heading towards Pietermaritzburg, stationary truck at Cliffdale. If you're heading to Durban, stationary truck at Ashburton. Both are reporting heavy delays there. And Cape Town, with the rain about, conditions on the highways are staying heavier longer. The N1 still queuing from Plattekloof all the way to the city centre. The M2's at Robert Sobukwe. The M3 still badly backed up from Constantia. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Steve in Centurion, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about what President Kagame of Rwanda has had to say?
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe. So, just very briefly,
sure.
The East African force was chased out of the DRC by the president, Tshisekedi, and he went on to recruit the SADC, the SADC forces. That's what Paul Kagame is saying.
Yes.
And then Paul Kagame, this is now the point. He says these Congolese, the leaders of Congo, are experts in going around promising the leaders of various African countries, making promises to them. Now, that makes me wonder, what was Ramaphosa promised? And other SADC and other leaders in the SADC, if they send their young men to fight the M23.
Sure.
So,
do you suspect this might all be
not,
transactional, be based on some...
You are not digging enough. You are not asking the questions as journalists. That's what Paul Kagame is saying, that they go around making promises.
Sure.
So why don't you ask, what is the interest of Ramaphosa and other leaders in the DRC? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. That's Steve in Centurion, just asking, what was promised to the leaders who are willing to send their forces to fight alongside the Congolese forces in the DRC. Marshall in Cape Town, good morning to you. Also on the issue of the DRC.
Good morning to the SFM family and to yourself, my brother.
Good morning.
Look, for me, there's a big question mark. What are we setting our people up? Are we sending our troops in to be killed so that their families can suffer? What are we doing? Are we not looking in the best interest of our soldiers? Or are we setting our soldiers up for failure? Because I'm asking myself, would I join the army? Would I join any military forces of South Africa? Would I send my kids to that? Because tomorrow I will get the same news that, you know what, we are pardoned, we are sorry for what transpired on the side of the land. Is this what our country is setting ourselves up to? Failure.
All right.
And that is what I'm trying to figure out. Where are we going with this news every time? Tomorrow it can be another story. And so it will continue. And all these government departments are saying they are sorry. Sorry don't solve any problem.
Gotcha. Marshall, thank you for that. That's Marshall in Cape Town. Let me take a call from Mbuyisa in Ladysmith. Nambit, good morning to you, Mbuyisa. Ngiyaphila kunjani ba?
All I can say is that, Paul Kagame is one of the most dangerous African leaders. And I mean, I can see that he intimidated Ramaphosa because Ramaphosa is distorting the story, and you can hear Ramaphosa is a little bit frightened. All I'm saying is that South Africa is supposed to protect itself against Kagame. Mabuliwe.
No, I'm not ready. I don't know about you. I'm not ready for any war.
No, but he picked it up. This is the
Mbuyiswa. All right, thank you very much. That's Mbuyiswa there, saying, let's go to war, let's go to battle. I mean, according to him, President Kagame has declared war. Let's go for it. I don't know. I'm not ready. I certainly would hope that it doesn't escalate to that level. Let's take this one now on the Defense Ministry. Earlier on, I played you those two clips of the Deputy Minister and the Minister contradicting each other about whether or not our troops at any point ran out of ammunition.
Good morning, Thulas and SAFM listeners. Listening and looking at the President,
I think
and Ntate Holomisa.
Yeah, I think we did play that one. Let's take this one on the M23.
Thulas, all I can say to the President, South Africa is not ready for the M23 rebels. We are definitely not ready for them. We're not ready for the M23 rebels. Not at all.
Yeah. All right. No, that's concerning because, we are already in that theater of war, as you were hearing from Lenin Ndebele and Sophie Mkwena a bit earlier on. The position is that our soldiers are in their base, and according to the SANDF, their base is close to the airport in Goma. The story from the South African government is that there have been no attacks on our soldiers, at least for the last 48 hours, if you count from yesterday going backwards. So 48 hours before yesterday, there had been no attacks after a truce was reached. What concerns me from what you just said and what we've been reading from, what was said by President Paul Kagame of Rwanda is basically the sense that almost being at the mercy of the M23 rebels. Point number 4 of President Kagame's, X post that breaks down the conversation between him and President Ramaphosa says, President Ramaphosa did ask for support to ensure the South African force has adequate electricity, food and water, which we shall help communicate. So help communicate there, meaning that relay that request to the M23. That is not a good situation to be in, where part of your supplies and your needs, if this version is true, of course, part of your supplies and your needs depend on the people you were fighting just a few days ago and to whom you lost at least 9 lives. That, for me, is another aspect that we really should be pressing the South African government to answer more directly. What is the status of those supplies?
Good morning, Thulas. It is clear that South African government, we cannot afford to send the troops there. Why can't we pull them out? What's holding it? What is it that is preventing us from taking the troops back? Just to take them back, we have other duties to do in South Africa.
Yeah, that's a constant refrain. We've heard that call quite a number of times. Let me end it off with a quick call from Mandla in Limpopo. Good morning, Mandla.
Hi, Thulas. How are you?
I'm well. Please go ahead.
Yes, Thulas, Baba. There is an issue yet to President. Regarding Cabo Delgado, because we have our soldiers there.
Yeah.
And in Rwanda, the last time I had even a soldier lab.
Yes.
And can you clarify, Rwanda is a part of SADC or what? Because Rwanda, South Africa is part of SADC and the DRC is SADC. And Rwanda is a Cabo Delgado. South Africa is there also.
Yeah.
From now,
gotcha.
Since we have this confusion.
Mandla, thank you for that. I'll take that as an assignment, and I do give you the undertaking that I will do my own research, because I did hear the allusion to Rwanda and in Cabo Delgado and possibilities of confrontation having occurred there, and I did say that I was not fully au fait with those details, and my undertaking is I will do my research and I will come back to you with that. As far as SADC is concerned, Rwanda is not a member of SADC, so that's that. All right, thank you for listening. That's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. The Talking Point with Kethi Mohlahlana up next here on SAFM after the news. And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43187.
In our top stories, East African community leaders call for a ceasefire in DRC, and Motsoaledi speaks on funding of HIV and AIDS programs. Good morning. East African community leaders have called on all parties involved in the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo to cease hostilities and facilitate humanitarian access to the affected population. The EAC leaders met virtually to focus on the crisis in Eastern Congo. The meeting was chaired by East African Community Chair and Kenyan President William Ruto. South Africa lost 13 soldiers since the M23 rebels captured the city of Goma. Kylie Kumalo has more.
In a communique released by the East African community leaders, it appears that DRC President Felix Tshisekedi did not attend the virtual session. The leaders deliberated on the deteriorating situation in eastern DRC, which led to the loss of lives, humanitarian crisis, and suffering of people, especially women and children. The EAC leaders have also expressed concern about the attack of several diplomatic missions in Kinshasa. They called on DRC authorities to protect embassies.
Meanwhile, Rwandan President Paul Kagame says Rwanda is ready for a confrontation with South Africa if necessary, after a claim by President Cyril Ramaphosa that the M23 rebels and Rwanda's Defence Force were responsible for the deaths of the 13 South African soldiers in the DRC. Kagame says South Africa cannot be a peacemaker.
I spoke with the President of South Africa, who sought me out to speak with me on this matter because of their involvement in Eastern Congo, and he's also there pretending to be playing a peacemaker role, and he has a force that has been fighting alongside FDLR and has been fighting the M23 on the instructions of Tshisekedi, because these are people who are not supposed to be in Congo.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the U.S. move to temporarily cease its funding of HIV and AIDS programs around the world under the new Trump administration will have a limited impact on South Africa's fight against the disease. Motsoaledi